What's up guys, this is your favorite fanfic YouTuber, the Fanfic Majesty, and welcome to another amazing video. You can follow me on Patreon for exclusive stories. 8 Saw Chapter 176 The Pirates Are Coming advertisement. King Riku was stunned and couldn't figure out the purpose of Marine coming to Dressrosa. I secretly speculated in my mind that recently, Marine and the world government have been active in the New World for the escape of slaves, and are they worried? Why does the person in front of me still have time to come to Dressrosa to relax? He doesn't think Marine coming to Dressrosa will do anything good. Although Dressrosa is a franchising country, if pirates actually make trouble in the New World, it will be resolved by the local army of Dressrosa. The reason why it became a franchising country is that Dressrosa itself was a member of the franchising country 800 years ago, and the other is that although the world government cannot send Marines, it will provide weapons assistance. Although these weapons also need to be purchased. But it is also more advanced than the weapons on the underground black market. I heard that in West Blue, there is a person named Heavenly Yaksha, who is selling some very advanced weapons, which are not inferior to those of the world government. However, this has nothing to do with the present. Marine's duty is to catch pirates. He didn't come to Dressrosa to catch pirates. King Riku glanced at Karen, and just as he was about to ask, a series of rapid footsteps came from the direction of the palace gate from far to near, and a guard shouted anxiously. "Oh no, His Majesty King Riku, the pirates are coming." Well, King Riku looked at Karen who was sitting upright beside him. He felt that his head was a little bigger. He pressed his temples and said in a deep voice, "Why are you panicking? It's not like I've never seen pirates before." After scolding the panicked guards, he smiled apologetically at Karen. "Sorry, I made you laugh. It's okay. After all, this is still our dereliction of duty. Why don't we let me deal with the pirates first and then discuss the next thing?" Karen smiled gently. She felt a little embarrassed to directly ask King Riku for help, but now it's better. Since the pirates are here, after dealing with the pirates, she can just make a request to King Riku. Asking him to owe him a favor, Karen is not without the consciousness of being a Marine. Anyway, the gold in the sky is not in his hands. Since he solved the problem, he naturally owes him a favor. When King Riku heard that there was going to be further discussion, his voice unconsciously increased several times. Ahem, no, 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 no. Major General Karen finally came to Dressrosa. Why bother you? Then, he quickly told Cyrus, "Cyrus, I'm sorry to trouble you. Please summon the guards yourself to deal with it." "Okay, Your Majesty." Cyrus bowed slightly, glanced sideways at Karen, and prepared to leave. Advertisement. Karen was a little disappointed. What a great opportunity. What an old fox. Ha ha ha, don't worry, Major General Karen, Cyrus is very strong. Cyrus stopped and said coldly and proudly, "You're just a pirate, you eat first, I'll be back soon." King Riku waved, and the maid on the side brought a tray, which contained Dressrosa's fine wine. Then, he glanced at the guard who was about to speak but said casually, "Why, is there anything else you want to report?" The guard finally got a chance to speak, fell to his knees and said loudly, "They're the Big Mom pirates. Oh, don't panic. What?" King Riku suddenly stood up from his seat. The wine glass in his hand suddenly broke due to the force, and the wine spilled all over the floor. Cyrus also stopped leaving, but he still didn't care. As a man who has won 3,000 consecutive victories in the bullfighting arena, he is very confident in his own strength. "Your Majesty, don't worry, wait for my good news." Karen couldn't help but find it a little funny. He thought of the pirate ship he met on the way here. If it was the Big Mom pirates, it meant that Mr. Kaji personally led the team. Katakuri is a guy who even Karen is not 100% confident about winning. He is a ruthless person who turned a Paramisha into a Logia. It seems that he is going to take action today. Stop. But the more Karen listened, the more he felt that King Riku was right. Big Mom pirate ship, right? The Big Mom pirates are not the pirates that used to fight in small groups. This matter needs to be carefully considered. So he said righteously. Wang Shaoji of Riku moved him with emotion and reason, and exhorted him with sincerity. King Riku shouted and stopped Cyrus. King Riku opened a newspaper from inside. The Karen on the cover was exactly the same as the young Marine in front of him. Advertisement. Why didn't I think of that, Marco? What's more, as the kingdom of the New World, he understands that the Big Mom pirates are not like other pirate groups who burn, kill and plunder, but are willing to open food factories everywhere in the New World, although they do not pay. If you want to help divert the attention of the Sun Pirates, why don't you be the lead yourself? Then, he sighed heavily. I'm sorry, but I recognized Major General Cullen." King Riku looked at Karen's appearance carefully, then waved, and a maid came over with a small box. "It's better to let me go." Karen understood what he meant, so he continued. "I'll help you get into trouble that King Riku doesn't dare to cause." After all, who asked me to call myself Lei Feng? What's more, this is still an extraordinary period for the world government and Marines, because Marine is vigorously hunting down New World. On the surface, things are calm, but in fact, these pirate emperors have long been dissatisfied with Marine. If we really start a war with the pirates, I'm afraid it will be detrimental to the world government's ability to capture slaves. He hesitated a little and continued. After receiving a positive answer, King Liku sat on the throne with a headache. King Liku glanced at the medal on Karen's chest and sighed, "Major General, I'm afraid it's not enough." Then, he looked at Violet aside, whispered in her ear a few times, and then Violet nodded. "Maybe you can really solve the Big Mom pirates for us, but after solving this time, you Marine just slapped your butt and left, leaving a mess in the end, and we didn't have to solve it ourselves." King Riku quickly apologized, and then he realized what kind of cruel person the slightly immature Marine in front of him really was. But this is within the range of Dressrosa. Don't worry, His Majesty King Liku, Karen, will help with this. The forces on both sides are like two powder barrels. If you act casually, they may explode. Therefore, there must be no conflict with the Big Mom pirates this time. However, you should understand that Marine cannot easily start a war with the Emperor of the New World. This will bring about a series of chain reactions. Karen smiled. Don't worry, I once defeated Phoenix Marco of the Whitebeard Pirates, so I should be able to deal with Katakuri. But he was thinking about it. The worst case scenario is to reduce some intrauterine expenses, tighten the belt, and bite the bullet. Chapter 177 Ka-Urs Conquers Advertisement. What? Dressrosa refuses for us to build a dessert factory on the island? One is tall and strong, with slender limbs, wearing a blue cotton padded jacket and a yellow cloak. The man wearing a belt with a magic lamp symbol on his waist was holding a phone bug with a look of shock and astonishment on his face. Charlotte Linlin's third son, Charlotte Dafu, originally, he was the person in charge of this operation. In his opinion, the Big Mom pirates could only deal with a poor kingdom by hand. It was only because Marine was active in the New World recently that Katakuri was worried about his younger siblings, so he decided to act with them. That's great. I didn't expect that little Dressrosa would have the courage to reject my Big Mom pirates. Smoothie looked so gloomy that he could squeeze out water. Interesting, what makes Dressrosa dare to disobey our orders? Katakuri also looked unkind. To him, Dressrosa's rejection was like a slap in the face to the Big Mom pirates. Dafu was furious and roared loudly, "It's Marine! There's a Marine coming to Dressrosa!" One? Smoothie looked puzzled. In this sea, whether it was a Marine or a pirate, almost no one acted alone. Yes, that's what the other side said. Dafu nodded and cursed angrily. Damn Marine, do you really think of yourself as the master of New World? Interesting. Katakuri said lightly. In that case, let me see if Marine has the ability to protect this place. Major General Cullen, we really can't start a war with the Big Mom pirates. On the other side, in the palace, King Liku warned him earnestly. Why, Your Majesty thinks we Marine are no match for them. Karen smiled coldly. Or is it that Dressrosa and the Big Mom pirates are colluding? King Liku waved his hands quickly and said in a panic. How is this possible? It's just that the situation in New World is too complicated. Karen said calmly. Don't worry, Dressrosa won't be implicated. This is a one-sided confrontation between Marine and the Big Mom pirates. Karen slowly stood up, suddenly glanced sideways at Cyrus, and said with a smile. How about it, do you want to go with me to meet a mere pirate? Cyrus snorted coldly and did not respond, but turned his attention to King Liku. Advertisement. He has not forgotten his identity. He is now the captain of King Liku's army and the consort of King Liku. Seeing that he could not stop Karen, King Liku couldn't help but sigh deeply, then slowly stood up, winked at Cyrus, and left with a group of guards and Karen. The port of Dressrosa is deserted. The ordinary people living here got the notice from King Liku and left here one after another. They were no strangers to the process of pirate invasion, and they hid one after another when they saw the pirate flag. Smoothie was the first to jump off the bow. She was a descendant bred by Linlin and the Ashinaga clan. Standing next to Katakuri and Daifuku, she was not much shorter than them. Hey, why is there no one here? Ha ha ha, you must have seen our pirate flag hiding. Dafu also jumped off the bow. Then as the ship slowly docked, the soldiers on board came ashore one after another. After hearing that Dressrosa refused the request, their eyes instantly turned red, not because of anger, but because of excitement. For them, refusal means that they can use force to loot Dressrosa. Unlike other countries, Dressrosa is famous for its beauties and dancing. Thinking about this, each of them was very excited and couldn't wait to rush into the country to do evil. Katakuri was the last to get off the ship. As soon as he appeared, everyone present looked at him with admiration. He is the strongest member of the Big Mom pirates besides Charlotte Linlin, and he cares very much about his own people, and he has his own fanbase within the family. Set off, as a pirate, Katakuri doesn't speak much. Come on, I've long heard that there are many beauties in Dressrosa. I'm going to grab 10 of them today. I heard that there are also small humans on the island. The price offered by the celestial dragons to the small humans is quite high. Especially recently, the prices of all slaves have skyrocketed. I even want to sell myself. Ha ha ha, What the Tianlong people want is a famous captain. As for you, you are probably not worth a penny. The soldiers of the Big Mom pirates happily rushed into the city of Drosrosa, talking to each other. But after taking a few steps, they suddenly felt that the world in their eyes turned into black and white, their expressions gradually became dull, and their thoughts froze, as if time had stopped at this moment. Those shouts stopped suddenly, and suddenly there was a sound of falling to the ground from the crowd. They were like a bumper harvest of wheat, falling one after another without any resistance. Katakuri narrowed his eyes slightly. This kind of power is not unfamiliar to him, because he also has it. Advertisement conquerors. Conquerors in marine. This news actually surprised Katakuri, Sengoku or Garp. This doubt did not last long. In the dense forest of Dressrosa, a man wearing a white marine uniform suddenly appeared, as if he had always been there. Pirates, this is not the place you should come. Karen said calmly, his tone was like the edge of a cold sword, with a hint of sharpness. Young, strong and sharp. Several nouns appeared in Katakuri's mind, and he thought of a name. Is it you? He and Smoothie spoke almost simultaneously. Dafu showed no reaction and looked at Smoothie in surprise. Smoothie said coldly, I saw him on the way here, he was riding a big black bird. Kukuro Cullen. Katakuri actually called out Karen's name. Karen smiled lightly and asked with interest, oh, you know me? After a moment of silence, Katakuri slowly said, Callan who defeated Marco. Ahem. Why do you always add Marco to my name every time? Marco won't be happy if you do this. Karen secretly cursed in his heart that his influence in New World was entirely due to the battle on Fishman Island. I didn't expect you to be able to conquer us, no wonder Marco lost to you. Katakuri continued, but I am not Marco. As he spoke, a powerful aura spread from his body, and the world seemed to change color. The surrounding trees trembled slightly, and the leaves rustled in the wind, as if they felt the shock of this powerful force. The airflow became heavier and heavier, as if being held by invisible hands, making it suffocating. Unlike Marco who wholeheartedly assists Whitebeard. Conquerors, he has two, and more domineering than Karen. Chapter 178 1 verses 4 Advertisement as expected of Teacher Kaur. The conquerors he displayed at this moment was by no means comparable to what Karen had just awakened. But there was not much fear in his heart, instead, it aroused his competitiveness after a long absence. The battle between Katakuri and Wang Lufei can be said to be a very exciting showdown 2 years later. Teacher Kaur also gained a lot of fans, earned a lot of tears, and even gained a good reputation in that battle. What power is this? In the dense forest of Dressrosa, Cyrus felt dizzy. The guards behind him could not bear it and fainted to the ground. Even King Liku sat helplessly on the ground, with sweat beads on his face like rain, and it was obvious that he could no longer hold on. Cyrus stopped, carried King Liku on his back, and stayed away from this area. King Liku said weakly, you can feel it. This is the strength of the real strong man in this sea. Cyrus, I know you are strong, but I hope you remember this sentence, there are people outside the world, and there is a sky outside the world. In this world, there will always be someone more powerful than us. King Liku's voice was weak, but it revealed a sense of helplessness and determination. When Cyrus heard these words, he couldn't help but feel heavy in his heart. Facing a strong man like Katakuri, even he would have difficulty persisting in this aura for too long. I wonder what happened to that young marine. Karen moved his shoulders and pulled off the white cloak behind him. Let me see what the composition of the Big Mom pirates is like. Am I to understand that Marine is ready to attack New World? Katakuri said coldly. Stop talking nonsense. Karen plucked her ears and said nonchalantly, as a Marine, I can't watch pirates attack world government member countries. You're right, brother, this guy only has one person, but we have three. There is no such thing as a fair duel in the New World, not to mention they're pirates. Smoothie drew out the giant sword from his back, and his body instantly became extremely huge. Paramecia squeezed fruit, juice giant. It can store the water extracted with its abilities in its body, making its body and weapons huge, and exerting power close to that of the giants. That's wrong, Smoothie, there are 4 of us. Dafu began to rub his abdomen, and soon a dark blue demon made of smoke appeared from his body. Paramecia, transpiration fruit. Advertisement. The 2 people moved quickly, showing an overwhelming encirclement. The breaths of the 4 people intertwined in the air, forming an invisible barrier, covering Karen standing in the center. Karen chuckled disdainfully, completely ignoring the auras of Smoothie and Dafu. Facing a truly strong man, unless there is a tacit understanding between the super players, their combined attacks will not be able to pose a threat to him at all. On the contrary, it will restrict the truly powerful Katakuri. Just like now, a coldness flashed in Karen's eyes. A few green beans suddenly appeared in my hand, Xiao Li's flying knife. With a flick of his finger, those green beans seemed to have gained life and shot towards Smoothie at high speed. The change in size means that her speed will be greatly reduced. When Smoothie saw this, he secretly screamed something bad, and watched helplessly as those green beans approached him at an alarming speed. The next second, Katakuri's figure instantly appeared in front of Smoothie, and at the same time, a milky white paste emitted from his body to block the attacks of the green beans. Katakuri possesses the highest level of hockey in the world of pirates. Due to excessive cultivation of this ability, he has reached the point where he can see the future. Not only can you see it, but you can also hear it. Katakuri can briefly perceive what will happen in the future. Thank you, brother. Although Smoothie didn't know what those green beans were, she knew she couldn't let the enemy's attack work. Katakuri was about to answer when his face suddenly changed and he shouted hurriedly. Dafu, be careful. Although he has the ability to predict, his speed cannot keep up. I can only watch Dafu face everything. Dafu stood there, still not understanding what Katakuri meant, and then he felt a strong sense of crisis coming over his back, as if something was approaching quietly. He turned around, and in front of him was a dark black flying sword speeding towards him, accompanied by a harsh sound of breaking through the air. When? Dafu hurriedly dodged sideways, but it was too late. He could only be forced to raise his right arm to block. The flying sword cut through the air like lightning, bringing a harsh sound of wind. Advertisement accompanied by the sound of something falling to the ground. Dafu only felt a sharp pain, and then his body was hit by a powerful force. He was instantly knocked to the ground, covering the broken section of his arm in pain. Only then did he understand what the sound was. In a face-to-face encounter, in a 4-on-1 situation, he was the first to lose an arm. No, if Katakuri hadn't reminded him, what fell just now might have been his head. It's so brutal. Is this still Marine? In front of Karen, a dark black flying sword was suspended in the air, exuding a cold light. What a pity, otherwise it would have been 2 versus 2. Karen laughed. Damn Marine, you actually carried out a sneak attack? Dafu let out a painful groan. Sneak attack. Haha, you are 4 against 1. Karen reminded with a sneer. Dafu was helped by the lamp demon to stand up and yelled. So what, we are pirates, you are a righteous Marine. Justice Marine. Karen's laughter contained a hint of contempt. If even the people are dead, how can the pirates be eliminated? Dafu, get out of here. Katakuri had a gloomy look on his face. In the prediction just now, Dafu would die. I won't leave. Dafu gritted his teeth. I was just careless, then. This is an order, Katakuri yelled in a rare voice. Dafu clenched his fists, and finally left the battlefield with a face full of anger. Karen did not stop him, but let him leave. And you, Smoothie, leave too. Katakuri stared at Karen. His sense of sight was in full operation. As long as Karen made any move to stop him, he would immediately strike him with a thunderous blow. Smoothie turned back to her original appearance without speaking harshly. She knew that the next battle was not something they could bear. She took a deep breath and glanced at Karen. Although she was unwilling to do so, she still left. Katakuri clenched the trident in his hand and said in a deep voice. Next, it will be a war between the two of us. Chapter 179 Start. Advertisement terrifying murderous intent emerged from Katakuri's body, and the atmosphere of the entire battlefield solidified. His eyes were as sharp as blades, and he wanted to tear Karen apart. Dafu is his triplet brother, and his family ties are thicker than water and he cannot tolerate any threats. If you dare to hurt my brother, I will never forgive you. Katakuri's voice was as deep as thunder. What responded to him was Karen's sword energy. The sword energy filling the sky was like a strong wind, without any temptation. Phantom sword dance. There was a hint of contempt at the corner of Katakuri's mouth. His figure was like a ghost. In the dense sword light, he sometimes turned into a white glutinous mass and divided his body. This is his ability to predict the opponent's attacks accurately and divide his body in advance to avoid all attacks, including armed colors. He is the only strong man who uses Paramecia as Logia. Karen had a solemn look on his face. He didn't expect Kaoru to see Wensei's precognitive ability so early. However, this is normal. He knows that people's strength growth has bottlenecks. In addition to combat experience increasing with time, physical fitness will also enter a plateau after reaching its peak. Only through continuous training and understanding of one's own abilities can one break through this bottleneck. This is also why Katakuri still lost to Wong Luffy even though he had eaten so many more years than Luffy. This is because after reaching the bottleneck period, unless there is a huge opportunity, plug-in, no matter how hard you exercise, it will be difficult to make a qualitative leap. Karen's talent itself is not very good. He can have such a strong physical fitness only by eating. He constantly eats Poseidon and then uses his life to quickly absorb it. The reason why he exercised less was because he could clearly feel that his body had reached its limit. If there are no accidents, now is his peak period. Therefore, he can only rely on combat skills to continuously improve his upper limit. Can you predict the color of sight and hearing? Karen murmured, this is really difficult to handle. Unless he can understand it in the next battle, his winning rate really won't be too high. However, a low winning rate does not mean that he will lose. Karen has this confidence. Karen's eyes narrowed slightly, looking excited. Wong Luffy can understand the meaning of the situation in the battle with Teacher Kaoru, but there is no reason that Karen can't. This is a good opportunity, let's take a special training class. Advertisement. After understanding this, Karen was no longer in a hurry to attack, but instead used all his strength to sense Katakuri's every move. Katakuri did not disappoint Karen either. The ground under their feet gradually became elastic. The ground changed from the original earthy brown to a pure white waxy beige color. Devil fruit, awaken! Karen was shocked. Ka was too strong at this time. The Tibetan fung in his hand silently erupted with a burst of coldness, firmly fixing the nuodwan under his feet. Quiu glutinous rice. Katakuri suddenly squatted down, and the assimilated land instantly turned into several thick rice cake strips, and then quickly shot towards Karen. Karen waved the hidden edge in his hand to cut it off, but the rice cake sticks seemed to be alive, nimbly avoiding his attack and continuing to attack him. Karen's heart tightened, realizing that she had underestimated Katakuri's ability. This guy had predicted Karen's response method in advance and changed the attack trajectory in advance. There was no time to dodge, so he had to bear it. Iron! Karen shouted loudly, and his weapons moved crazily. In conjunction with the iron block, his figure was like a solid stone in the tide, allowing Katakuri's attack to come. A sneer flashed across Katakuri's lips, as if he had predicted Karen's movements. The next moment, he suddenly disappeared and reappeared behind Karen. His right arm turned into a flowing rice cake and expanded rapidly, surrounded by armaments, solidifying into the shape of a mace. Then his right arm rotated rapidly, and then hit Karen's head like a meteor hammer. Cut rice cake. This is Katakuri's strongest move. With this move, he can beat Luffy in the 4th gear snake form until he loses consciousness. Karen's head felt like needles pricking his head, and there was a strong sense of crisis in his back. His intuition told him that if he was hit by this blow, the consequences would be disastrous. Can't let him hit me, Karen roared in his heart, and his body dodged to one side almost instinctively. His perception reached its peak at this moment, as if time was slowing down at this moment. He could clearly feel Katakuri's attack trajectory, and the return of life and the color of his weapons were concentrated on Karen's head as if they were free of charge. Advertisement at the same time, he shouted loudly. Iron Piece T2 Kung. Katakuri sneered, and with powerful power, his mace-like right arm hit Karen's head hard, and the ensuing strong wind suddenly pushed Karen's body away. Karen groaned and felt a sharp pain spread throughout his body. His body was knocked out and hit the ground heavily, raising a cloud of dust. Katakuri stood there, staring at Karen, who fell to the ground, without any relaxation in his eyes. This guy's defense is so terrifying, he was secretly surprised in his heart. Sure enough, in the next moment, Karen rolled like a carp and bounced up from the ground. He stroked the back of his head with one hand, felt dizzy for a while, and couldn't help but grin. Damn it, it hurts so much. This was the first time that he was injured in a battle after 2 years. Even in the duel between Mary Joa and Saint Satan, he was not seriously injured. The most he felt was a sense of weakness. The long-lost pain roused the competitiveness in his heart. His physical fitness was almost the same as Katakuri's, the only thing he lacked was the use of sight. Well, if I wasn't afraid of being exposed, I would have used the power of the Guhuo bird to strengthen myself. Karen sighed in his heart. With the blessing of Guhuo bird's ability, his body was like a monster that had eaten a phantom beast species. However, I have other options. A cold look flashed in Karen's eyes. Slowly took out the phone and dialed an unknown number. Blue, blue, blue. A series of bells rang, filling the entire battlefield. Isn't it too late to call for rescue now? Katakuri didn't know why and mocked coldly. Rescue? Karen didn't explain, turned up the ringing phone bug to the loudest, and finally put it in her arms. A feeling of being strengthened arose spontaneously. He felt that his body had become lighter, his 5 senses had become extremely sensitive, and his limbs were particularly strong. God of BGM, start, Chapter 180. I predicted your prediction. Advertisement. When he acquired this ability, Karen had a suspicion about him, so he asked Vegapunk to make a solid speaker for him. He thought he wouldn't need this ability this time, but he didn't expect that in Dressrosa he unexpectedly met Katakuri. As a last resort, I can only use the ringtone of the phone bug as a BGM. I don't say whether it sounds good or not, but it is useful. Karen waved his hand, signaling Katakuri to continue. Katakuri's face was gloomy. He was obviously offended by Karen's gesture. He clearly had the upper hand, you damn brat. Gonli rice cake. No longer hesitating, Katakuri shouted, and a donut instantly appeared next to him, and then countless armed-colored needles appeared out of thin air around the donut. Like pear blossom needles in a rainstorm, 360 degrees full. Side shot at Karen. Whoosh whoosh. The needles poured down like rain, and the air was filled with the harsh sound of breaking through the air. The next moment, a look of astonishment appeared on Katakuri's face. Because in his perception, Karen's figure was like a ghost, constantly dodging among the dense needles. Every needle passed by him, but could never touch him. This kid. How can he be so fast? Katakuri was secretly shocked. Did he hide his true strength just now? Karen's figure was like a fish swimming in the water, agile and fast in the acupuncture rain. Whenever the needle was about to land, he would easily turn aside or squat down slightly, cleverly avoiding all attacks. Katakuri continued to launch a new round of attacks, which lasted for more than 10 rounds, but Katakuri's attacks never worked again. What makes Katakuri feel strange is that even though Karen is so fast, he seems to have no intention of attacking. Second brother is so powerful. The marine brat he beat was totally powerless to fight back. Dafu, who was watching the battle, opened his mouth wide and looked excited. Is this a showdown between monsters? Smoothie was also stunned. Even in the Big Mom Pirates, there were not many people who could fight Katakuri. But why'd I always feel that Marine is not using his full strength? Smoothie had a different take. How is it possible? My second brother is the strongest in our Big Mom Pirate group besides my mother. Dafu sneered. In a short while, that Marine will definitely be defeated by my brother. Katakuri, who was fighting against Karen, was obviously not that optimistic. He had long sensed that something was wrong. Are you treating me as a sparring partner? Katakuri quickly understood why Karen did what he did. Damn little devil. Advertisement. Although he was angry, he had no other choice but to keep giving Karen tricks. But the frequency of his attacks has decreased a lot. A sneer flashed in Karen's eyes. Did you notice it? But this is not something you can stop if you want. Sure enough, as soon as Karen's thoughts arose, Katakuri's offensive immediately became fierce. Because in his premonition, Karen was ready to attack his younger siblings. Damn it, are you really a Marine? Seeing that the offensive was becoming fierce again, Karen began to slowly close his eyes and feel Katakuri's attack trajectory. Nushuan groans. Katakuri shouted angrily, and a huge arm reinforced by horns stretched out from countless donuts and struck Karen from all directions. At this moment, a strange feeling suddenly emerged in Karen's heart. His consciousness seemed to be opened in an instant, and he felt Katakuri's attack trajectory and his movements in the next second. Although it was only for a moment, the feeling was particularly clear. Karen was overjoyed. Sure enough, actual combat is the best teacher. Let the storm come more violently. This frequency of attacks lasted for more than half an hour, and Karen's ability to predict what he saw, heard, and perceived was completely revealed. Katakuri's attack rhythm has also slowed down a lot. He was breathing heavily and felt helpless. He didn't want to be a sparring partner for Karen, but whenever his attack frequency slowed down, he could predict the younger brother and sister Karen was about to attack. It was at this moment that he recovered from that kind of prediction. Ha ha ha, thank you, Teacher Kaur. Karen's sincere thanks seemed particularly hateful in Katakuri's eyes. What do you want? Katakuri said helplessly. Karen said nothing, staring closely into Katakuri's eyes, his next move flashing through his mind. Katakuri had no choice but to stare into Karen's eyes. For a moment, there was no other sound on the battlefield except for the phone bug that was still shouting tirelessly. Smoothie and Dafu looked at each other in confusion. What's going on? Suddenly, Dafu slapped himself hard, and he thought of some possibility. Advertisement. Karen also learned the ability to foresee colors? Katakuri cares very much about his family. After he realized the ability to predict colors, he certainly did not choose to keep it secret, but tried his best to teach this skill to his family. It's a pity that no one can understand it except him. Could it be said that Karen only learned it after fighting Katakuri? Dafu stared closely at Karen's movements, and slowly his heart sank. It was rare to see dense beads on Karen's face, which was the oppression caused by the constant deduction in his mind. Katakuri on the opposite side also felt uncomfortable. To outsiders, he and Karen were just standing there, but in his conscious space, he had already fought against Karen again. This kind of battle between predictions is more tiring than punching to the flesh, mainly from the mental level. Karen kept imagining his own attack methods in his mind, deducing them countless times in his mind. Every idea was like an invisible contest with Katakuri, and various possibilities kept emerging in his mind. As a result, it seemed like an endless chess game was being played. Katakuri's expression also became more solemn. He could feel Karen's slight changes, and Karen's first display of precognitive ability made him feel more stressed. Did this kid really just learn it? Katakuri cursed inwardly and tried to keep his calm. At this moment, Karen seemed to see a flaw in him. He waved the hidden edge in his hand, and the air surged around him like a frenzy, instantly forming a series of ever-changing attacks. God avoids. Conquerors was mixed with countless lightning bolts, and in the blink of an eye, he came to the opposite side of Katakuri. Katakuri quickly grasped the Earth Dragon trident in his hand and placed it in front of him. However, Karen's hidden edge quickly changed direction like a flexible snake and penetrated through the gap in Katakuri's defense. How? How is this possible? Katakuri was shocked. He didn't expect Karen's attack method to be so flexible, completely breaking his previous prediction. Unable to resist, Katakuri immediately gathered all his weapons to resist Karen's attack. Boom! A deafening sound filled the air. Katakuri's body was hit with a powerful force and he was instantly forced to retreat. The ground beneath his feet cracked under the influence of the shockwave, and dust flew into the air. In the next moment, his entire body flew backwards, and a stream of scarlet blood spurted out of his mouth. The smoke dissipated, revealing Karen's figure. He pressed his temples and laughed softly. I predicted your prediction. Chapter 181 Emperors of the Sea. Advertisement. Punk Hazard, Vegapunk's laboratory. In the turbid experimental water tank, a man suddenly opened his eyes. He first quickly looked at the surrounding environment, and then lowered his head and stared at his hands. Various test tubes and electrodes were attached to the back of his hand, flashing with a faint blue light, seeming to be monitoring his vital signs. The man's heartbeat accelerated and his mind was in chaos. He suddenly thought of his identity. He remembered that his name was Jesse, that he was a Marine, and then he was captured, and then. He felt like his mind was crawling with dense ants, gnawing away at his brain crazily. He remembered, he thought about those inhumane experiences. Also, how did he come out? As his emotions fluctuated, the lights in the entire laboratory began to flicker on and off, flashing red light. Bah! Accompanied by the air pressure sound of the laboratory's gate of opening, the lights stopped flickering and became brighter. A man with a brain on his head appeared at the door. He glanced at Jesse and shouted in surprise. "Are you awake? Are you awake?" Katakuri took a deep breath, and his closed eyes suddenly opened. Second brother's awake. Smoothie, who was taking care of Katakuri, shouted out the window, her tone full of surprise and excitement. Bang! The bedroom door was pushed open with a loud B************** G sound. Second brother. Dafu looked concerned and stared into Katakuri's eyes. Smoothie suddenly raised his right hand and put it to Katakuri's mouth, and then a stream of milky white liquid fell into Katakuri's mouth. Katakuri drank all the juice. Finally, he spoke with difficulty. "I'm fine." Then silence fell in the air. After a full 3 minutes, Smoothie still feels very dreamy. Advertisement, he just let us go. Her tone was very confused. HMPH. Even if he knows what's going on, even if he can defeat us, he will never dare to offend our Big Mom pirates. Dafu seemed to take it for granted, his tone was nonchalant. Smoothie objected. But if he doesn't dare to offend us, there is no need to stop us from building a factory in Dressrosa. This. Dafu scratched the back of his head. No matter what he thinks, let Mom know first. Katakuri said coldly. Then, he slowly stood up from the bed, seeming to prefer standing to lying down. After drinking the life essence produced by squeezing the fruit, most of his physical fatigue has gone away. New World, Toddland Kingdom, Cake Island. This is a kingdom with Cake Island as the main body and more than 30 islands surrounding it. It is also called 10,000 Kingdoms. In Wan Guo, each island has its own characteristics, and most of them are composed of various foods. Cocoa Island with a chocolate theme, Nut Island with a nut theme. Jam-themed Jam Island. At this time, there is a tea party on Cake Island, the center of the world. A huge woman sat at the main seat, constantly stuffing food from the table into her mouth. As her throat rolled, her belly slowly became bloated. Mama. I didn't expect us old guys to get together for dinner again. This makes me miss the time when I was in the Rocks Pirates. As she spoke, there were tears in her eyes. Oh ho ho, those days are indeed very nostalgic, Linlin. The person who said this was an extremely tall and burly man with black hair shawl and a pair of long horns like the horns of a dragon. As he smiled, the beard like a dragon's beard on his mouth trembled up and down, making him look very rough and casual. It's a pity that there is one person who seems to be a bit out of place. Next to Kaido was a similarly tall man wearing golden armor. He had a very long beard around his mouth, which was even more exaggerated than Kaido's. It was like a waterfall hanging straight to the ground. Marco raised his glass and smiled sheepishly. Dad is busy recently and cannot attend this party, please forgive me. As he spoke, he raised his head and drank the drink in one gulp. HMPH, little brat, I won't give you any advice because you're looking at your friend's face. Advertisement. Ochaku snorted coldly, raised his glass and drank it in one gulp. I don't know if he is really giving face to his friend, or if he is afraid of Whitebeard. Marco the Phoenix? Linlin snorted coldly and said with a smile. The Whitebeard pirates are getting worse and worse. The two captains were defeated by a marine. It really makes me proud of the pirates. Marco's expression was stagnant, his eyes were spitting fire, but he couldn't refute it because that was the truth. Linlin smiled, as if he was ready to make a few mocking remarks, when suddenly, the sound of a phone bug came. This is Katakuri. Katakuri's voice came from the phone bug. Well, has the mission been completed? Linlin asked casually. There was silence for a full 10 seconds. When Linlin became impatient with waiting, Katakuri slowly spoke. Sorry, Mom, the mission failed. His voice was hoarse and weak. Boom. A terrifying aura erupted from Linlin, and she said with a gloomy face. You mean, you, Dafu and Smoothie all failed in their mission together? Yes. Linlin laughed angrily. Well, I didn't expect that a little Dressrosa would be so difficult to deal with. It's not Dressrosa, it's a Marine. Marine? The majesty that originally stopped became even stronger after hearing Marine. She remembered that just now she was mocking the Whitebeard pirates. She didn't expect that Katakuri would bring such a big surprise to her the next second, making her feel her face burning. Well, the Marine you're talking about isn't Garp, is it? She came up with a guess. No, it's a young Marine named Cullen. Waste. What a waste, you let me down so much. You're a shameful thing, come back quickly. Linlin's eyes burned, and he randomly grabbed a few desserts on the table and stuffed them into his mouth, then suppressed the anger in his heart. Karen? Marco whispered the name that haunted him. You know him? Ochaku glanced at him. Marco sighed and said with a wry smile. The Marine who defeated me is him. He is very strong and very weird. He still hasn't understood the majesty of Karen. After returning to the Whitebeard pirates, he asked his father, But the answer he got was that unless the opposite conquerors was stronger than his father, he would never be able to do it, at least. Dad couldn't do it. But is this possible? So the only thing he thought of was that Karen had eaten a very special devil fruit, a devil fruit that could target people with abilities. Chapter 182 Confessed Advertisement. Damn Marine, I haven't even bothered them yet, and they're actually messing with me. Lin was furious, her body was shaking slightly, and her bulimia seemed to be on the verge of triggering. Damn, crazy woman. Ochaku cursed angrily. He was invited by Lin and Kaido to discuss how to deal with Marine's recent crazy activities in New World. But he didn't expect that before the meeting started, Lin, a crazy woman, was about to attack one of his people because of bulimia. At this moment, Kaido stretched out a hand and pressed Lin's shoulder hard, suppressing her excitement. During the Rocks Pirates period, he had a good relationship with Lin, and even his blue dragon fruit was given to him by Lin. Calm down, Lin. We are discussing how to deal with Marine. Under Kaido's pressure, Lin's mood gradually relaxed, and she sneered. Okay, Marine, since you are determined to attack me, don't blame us for being rude. You're welcome. In the palace of Dressrosa, Karen kept changing cups with King Riku, and the atmosphere was very harmonious. It's true that heroes emerge from youth. I didn't expect Major General Karen to have such strength at such a young age. King Riku gave a thumbs up and couldn't help but praise loudly. Violet's eyes flashed with a strange light on the side. She could clearly see the battle between Karen and Katakuri, and the hormones that exploded from the power made her feel a surge in her heart. Cyrus no longer had the arrogance he had before. After feeling Karen's domineering power, he realized how little power he thought he had. He thought of his contempt for Karen, and he couldn't help but feel a trace of regret in his heart. Major General Cullen, I'm sorry, I'm short-sighted. Cyrus picked up the wine glass with bright eyes. Fortunately you are in Dressrosa, otherwise I wouldn't be able to resist the Big Mom pirates on my own. No, without me, you don't have to stop it at all. Karen secretly cursed in his heart. In the New World, pirates are pirates and 4 emperors are 4 emperors. After King Riku knew that the BIGMOM pirates were attacking, he didn't want to resist at all. Wherever, I can sense that you have not experienced systematic training, otherwise your strength will be stronger. Advertisement. This is true. As an ordinary person, Cyrus does not know the 6 styles, hockey, or devil fruit, but he can defeat one of Doflamingo's cadres. This means that he himself has strong potential. Cyrus waved his hand quickly and said with a smile, Major General Karen, I deeply admire your strength. Please forgive me for not overestimating my abilities. If I have the opportunity, I hope to learn swordsmanship with you. Swordsmanship? I don't know how to do that kind of thing. Karen thought of Shimotsuki Koshiro, who had been training with him for 2 years, and couldn't help but smile. You can try it if you have a chance. King Riku coughed lightly and said seriously, I remember that Major General Karen seems to have something important to do. Karen put down the wine glass in his hand, nodded, but did not speak, but looked around. King Riku understood and waved his hands, and the serving maids left one after another. Then, he winked at the guards next to him, and the guards also retreated. Oh, actually I have a merciless request. Karen sighed, pretending to be very embarrassed. Don't get me wrong, I just want to ask one of them to do me a favor. That's it. King Riku groaned and said slowly, yes, but, here's the thing, although I am the king of Dressrosa, there are actually 2 countries on this island. One is the kingdom of Dressrosa on the surface, and the other is located underground in the forest on Greenbit Island. Ahem, we've only known each other for less than a day. Okay then. After hesitating for a moment, King Riku nodded. Violet teased with a smile. Traveling to the famous Avenue of Lovers, Karen had to sigh at the opening of Dressrosa. They have their own country, so I can't ask them anything. Karen saw his confusion and explained with a smile. This. King Riku hesitated. Maybe, but I think real power comes from reason and courage. Karen smiled slightly, making his voice sound relaxed. He knew that Violet's teasing was not malicious. Before I came to Dressrosa, I heard the legend of goblins. Here, if I guessed correctly, they are small humans. Although it was not Karen's original intention to expel the Big Mom pirates, Karen did do Dressrosa a favor. Advertisement. Following King Riku's footsteps, the group of people headed from the King's Heights towards the forest on Greenbit Island. Even though Karen had long been used to being watched by so many people, he felt a little embarrassed at this time. He finally understood how Tina felt at that time, so he touched his nose and said with an awkward smile. He knows that the residents of the small human race are very innocent, or that most people in the world of One Piece are very innocent. Pairs of men and women were nibbling each other on the street as if no one was watching. Karen even saw 2 men. Karen smiled slightly. It doesn't matter, just give me an introduction. King Riku smiled calmly and said, if Major General Karen needs anything, just tell him. As long as I can help, I will definitely help. King Riku was shocked and stared closely into Karen's eyes. I said, I like you, Violet said loudly, causing the couples nearby to look sideways. Regardless of emotion or reason, he wanted to return Karen's favor. Violet, who has not experienced the Doflamingo incident, seems to be very naive. Unlike other women Karen knows, for Violet, who has lived in Dressrosa since she was a child, She has to tell her what she likes. Ahem, okay. Karen suppressed the discomfort in her heart. Violet continued, it can make people forget all their worries and even help us find the courage to take risks. Violet suddenly stopped, stared into Karen's eyes, and said loudly, Major General Karen, I like you. Huh? Karen didn't seem to hear clearly. Violet asked back, isn't this normal? Karen whispered. As for whether they were willing to help Karen, Karen had already made a statement. Violet continued. I'm serious, I like you. The existence of small humans is rare in the New World. Under the deliberate concealment of King Riku, even the people living in Dressrosa only know that there is a legend called Goblin on the island, and they have not really seen it. There are very few people in the small human race. Ha ha ha, Your Highness Violet really loves to joke. Ha ha, this is the tradition of our kingdom, you know? On this street, love is the most powerful force. Ha ha, Major General Cullen doesn't seem to adapt to such a scene. Chapter 183 The body is weak and miserable advertisement. Are you sure? Vegapunk stared into Jess's eyes. Jessie did not hesitate and nodded heavily. Karen doesn't want to see you like this. Vegapunk tried to persuade. Hearing Karen's name, Jessie closed his eyes in pain, and then slowly opened them again. His voice was hoarse, and his vocal system seemed to have not fully recovered. I know, but this is the only way I can help him. Vegapunk continued. You have to believe in Karen, he will definitely be able to find a way to treat you. I have always believed in him, and in my heart, there is nothing that Karen cannot do. Then why are you? I heard the conversation between you and Karen while I was unconscious. Vegapunk was stunned, but he didn't expect Jessie to be conscious at that time. Jessie ignored Vegapunk's reaction. He smiled, but his voice was hoarse, which was no better than crying. So I know that Karen's method can heal my body, but it can't make me stronger. And the mechanical transformation you mentioned is true, right? Vegapunk nodded, then shook his head. It's true, but the risk is very high, and I can't guarantee what it will look like in the end. Haha, doctor, what do you think I look like now? As he spoke, Jessie stared into Vegapunk's eyes. There was no good spot on his body, and the white bones on his body were clearly visible under the nutrient solution. The cheeks that were supposed to cover the teeth on his face also fell off, revealing the rugged teeth inside. Just looking at these wounds, you can imagine what kind of hell Jessie went through before. Vegapunk sighed, with mixed feelings in his heart. Jessie clenched his fists and roared in pain. I know my potential, and I also know how much danger Karen put in to save me. Putting all this aside, even if I really accept all this with peace of mind, will the world government let me go? If I don't completely change all this, I will become a flaw around Karen. This is definitely not what I want to see. As the most powerful scientist in the world, Vegapunk is not stupid. Through these days of observation, he has already guessed what happened to Karen and Jessie. So he sincerely admired Karen, so he could also understand what Jessie meant. As long as Jessie lives, he will live in the shadow of world government. And there is also the risk of being discovered by the world government. Only by completely changing his appearance can he stop becoming a burden to Karen. If he can become stronger, he can even help Karen. Vegapunk finally spoke, with a heavy and helpless tone. Advertisement. You're right, Jessie, I will help you and transform you into the strongest cyborg. Crossing the hills ahead is the country of Lilliput. King Riku pointed to the dense forest next to him and said solemnly. At this time, only Karen was left with King Riku, and Violet and the guards had already left. King Riku looked at Karen, who looked thoughtful, and said with a smile. Haha, Major General Karen, please don't worry about it. Girls living in Dressrosa are like this. They will not be stingy with their enthusiasm when it comes to the things they like. Ahem, Your Majesty is joking. Your Highness the Princess is a girl who dares to love and hate. Karen touched her nose and complimented. Time went back to 30 minutes ago. After Karen did not respond for a long time, Violet smiled apologetically, turned around and left without any delay. She is a decisive and independent girl, Karen thought to himself. Violet's character made him appreciate it very much, but at the same time it also made him feel a little helpless. At this moment, a rustling sound came from the trees in front, and King Riku looked surprised. We're here. After a moment, a small figure jumped out of the bushes. Karen looked down and saw a little human with a big blue tail looking at Karen with a wary expression, holding a few colorful flowers in his hand. Who are you? She asked crisply. King Riku squatted down and said with a smile. It's Weka. I am King Riku of Dressrosa. The little human named Weka carefully identified it before putting away the weapon in his hand. It's really you, what about him? Microcard pointed at Karen. After receiving Karen's affirmative reply, Gon Chao immediately bowed with tears in his eyes. Okay, I finally meet the descendants of the hero. I have always believed in him. Those rumors are definitely not false. Whether they're from the little human race or the Golden Land, they must be true. Yes. Karen smiled. My ancestor has been too misunderstood by the outside world. You don't know that in the eyes of outsiders, he is called a big liar. Karen said calmly. No, put me down. At the end of the story, Karen became more and more excited, and his emotions seemed to infect all the little humans present. Advertisement. So Karen told the little humans about the image of Nolando known to the world. Oh, what about you just now? As he spoke, he held Gan Chao's hand, as if he wanted to express his many years of grievances. Are you a descendant of Nolando? King Liku asked curiously. Yes, my ancestor was called the Big Liar, Nolando. Okay. Speaking of this, Karen looked lonely. You're the descendant of the great hero, Nolando. I'm lying. After a full 5 minutes, there were dense rustling sounds in the dense forest again, and soon a large group of small humans swarmed in. The old man got up from the ground, wailed twice in pain, then raised his head and looked at the two giant creatures in front of him. King Liku was stunned. Isn't the Big Liar, Nolando a character in a fairy tale? King Liku wanted to answer for Karen, but Karen took over the words first. Gan Chao shouted excitedly. It's true. I believe it too. We're the best proof. He pretended to be surprised, and then explained. My ancestors were right, it turns out that the small human race really exists. Karen and King Riku were left looking at each other. King Liku looked confused. Ancestor? Why is this happening? Gan Chao asked blankly. Karen also had tears in her eyes, and was even more excited than Gan Chao. It's true, he's not lying. Nolando. Wei Ka whispered the name. Then, she thought of something and turned around and left in a hurry. Ouch, it hurts me to death. The leader of the little human race was an old man with gray hair. He was holding a scepter in his left hand and was carried out by a group of young little humans. King Liku stared at all this blankly. If Karen hadn't told him just now that he was not a descendant of Nolando, he would have believed it. Looking past the familiar King Riku, he asked Karen. Just as Karen expected, the little humans did not doubt the authenticity of Karen's words at all. With a dong sound, the old man was thrown to the ground hard. Wait for me, I'll go find His Majesty the King. Chapter 184 Mechanical Ascension. Advertisement. After chatting with Gan Chao for a while, Karen revealed the purpose of coming to Lilliput. To be honest, I came to Lilliput this time because I was really desperate. I have a friend who was seriously injured due to some individual reasons. I would like to ask the Princess of Lilliput to treat my friend. That's it. Gan Chao pondered for a while and waved his hand in the direction behind him. A small female humanoid with big golden waves came out. She is Manchili, the princess of the small human race. Karen's eyes lit up, and her heart that had been hanging slowly subsided. For him, he is not afraid that the little humans won't help. What he is afraid of is that the princess of the little humans hasn't been born yet, or she hasn't eaten the healing fruit yet. I am Manchili, the princess of the Dongdada clan. She held up her little skirt and bowed slightly, performing an aristocratic gesture towards Karen. Karen returned a military salute and solemnly said, My name is Karen. Manchili smiled slightly. I do have treatment methods. If I can help the descendants of the hero, I will definitely help. Punk Hazard, Vegapunk's laboratory. Jesse, are you ready? Once you start, there is really no turning back. Vegapunk sat next to an instrument and reminded again. Let's get started, Doctor. Jesse stood in an experimental cabin nearby, surrounded by flashing instruments and complex mechanical devices. His heartbeat gradually accelerated, and his mind was filled with memories of being together with his comrades. They fought together and laughed together. Those beautiful memories came like a tide, making him feel a little warm. But then all this was broken by a group of people wearing masks. Jesse clenched his fists feebly and swore secretly in his heart that he would never let something like this happen again. He wants to become stronger and protect himself and those around him. Sir, you will also support me, right? I will take revenge myself. As the operation began, the surrounding instruments made a low hum, and all the sounds around him were clearly visible. His nerves were unusually awake. Jesse watched helplessly as the machine removed his limbs, and his body was gradually replaced by the mechanical device, surrounded. Gradually, his consciousness began to blur, and he was completely surrounded by weakness and darkness. Punk Hazard is ahead. Advertisement. Karen sat on the back of Jiuhuo Bird, and on his shoulders and chest sat the little human princess Manchili. Manchili, who had never left Dressrosa in her life, looked excited. For her, this time was not just to help Karen, but more importantly, she could follow Karen on an adventure. That's right, in order to prove to humans that Nolando is not a liar, the king of the small humans, Gan Chao, decided to let the princess of the small humans follow Karen to prove to the world that the small humans really exist. Because the bird's speed was so fast, Manchili couldn't open her eyes in the air. She clutched Karen's sleeve tightly and tried to remain calm. Okay, Karen. We're almost there, are you ready? Karen looked at Manchili with an encouraging smile on her face. I'm ready. Manchili tried her best to appear calm, although there was still a tremor in her voice. She had never experienced such an exciting journey, and she was both excited and nervous. Birds of prey hovered in the sky, overlooking the scene of Punk Hazard. The forest below shone in the sunlight, and the colorful seawater and golden sandy beaches formed a sharp contrast, as if waving to them. The bird slowly landed and landed steadily at the door of Vegapunk's research institute. Just when Karen was about to enter the password to enter, there was a sudden rumble in the distance. Karen frowned slightly, ignored it, and walked deeper into the laboratory. Karen. A guard dressed as Marine greeted him warmly. Karen smiled. Luke, you are on duty again. He was the guard who asked Karen to register last time. Boom. Only 30 seconds later, Karen saw from a distance two human figures, one large and one small, fighting on the beach in Punk Hassad. I went to find him, and I just wanted to see the doctor's new invention. The collision between the giant sword and Zon Momomaru's giant axe produced a huge explosion. Need not. Before the shell burst out, the steel monster's right hand began to shake violently. Then this is ADVERTISEMENT. Bang. Karen understands this. The guards here understand it, and Vegapunk himself understands it even more. The smaller one is Zon Momomaru, and the other, larger one, is a steel monster. If there is nothing important, there is no reason for Vegapunk to leave the institute, and the world government will not allow it. With that said, Karen was about to walk forward. How long has the doctor been gone? Karen asked. Ahem, I just said that the doctor is not in the institute, not that he is not in Punk Hassad. Zon Taowen's veins were exposed, and he resisted the powerful and heavy blow. Luke saw Karen's doubts and continued. Just went out for a while. Then I'm going in. Karen joked. There should be no need to register. It seems that Vegapunk can order the escort team at the institute. In fact, Karen's arrival is not a secret to the top management. Vegapunk has been monitored by the 5 elders. It has a metallic shell, a tall body, thick limbs, exudes a strong mechanical aura, and holds a giant sword wider than itself. Karen frowned. He knew that Vegapunk was nominally a scientist recruited by the world government. In fact, the world government's attitude towards Vegapunk was more uneasy and wary. At this moment, the steel monster suddenly retreated, and the giant sword in his hand quickly separated and reorganized. In just an instant, it turned into a super large caliber cannon, and yellow lasers began to condense. This is a double-edged sword. Karen thought of the explosion heard in front of the gate of opening, and it seemed that it was caused by the doctor. It shouldn't be pacifism. Bartholomew Bear, the prototype of pacifism, has not yet joined Shichibukai. You should be looking for the doctor. The doctor is not in the institute. Haha, what a coincidence. Luke laughed. It is more similar to Frankie, but compared to Frankie's human head, its head is also mechanical. Compared with the future pacifists and serifs, they are a little less refined and a little more rough and wild. After walking out of the research institute, Karen released his sense of knowledge, sensed the location of Vegapunk, and once again flew to the edge of Punk Hassad on the Guvua bird. I heard that the doctor invented a very special weapon. He called Zon Momoan to test the strength of the new weapon for him. I just don't know what kind of weapon it is. Wait. Luke stopped him and smiled in Karen's doubtful eyes. Don't get me wrong, the doctor has already said that you don't need to stop registration if you come. New weapons? Chapter 185 Ascended 1 Advertisement? Bang. The laser cannon was fired hard by the steel monster, and the huge sound resounded throughout the world. Zon Taomaru's face was solemn. He took a deep breath and felt the power of the laser cannon. In the end, he did not choose to resist. He turned his body slightly and easily avoided the laser cannon. Unfortunately, the speed is a bit slow. Zon Momoan stared at the steel monster and was joking. It seems that I only have the power of my uncle, but not his speed. This laser technology should be taken from the shining fruit of Perusalino. The corners of the steel monster's mouth seemed to be slightly curved, but because its whole body was made of steel, Zon Taowen was not sure whether he had seen it wrong, but he felt something was wrong in his heart. He was about to say something more, but the next moment, his back started to warn wildly. Turning his head subconsciously, he finally understood that something was wrong. The laser cannon fired by the steel monster did not explode after he dodged it. Fake it. The yellow laser slowly grew larger in his pupils. Iron. With no time to react, Zon Momomaru panicked and quickly used an iron block to block. Boom. The deafening sound was like a prehistoric monster roaring loudly. Karen sat on Guhunao's back and watched the whole process. He touched his chin and couldn't help but gasped. He knew that Zon Momomaru, as the captain of the scientific force and Vegapunk's bodyguard, was not weak. If he joins the Marine headquarters, he should be considered a lieutenant general. As expected of Vegapunk, I didn't expect that he would invent such a terrifying robot in 1505 AD. The laser cannon that can turn is a bit interesting. It's so scary. Is this human? The little human Princess Manchili in front of Karen opened her eyes wide. The smoke dissipated, revealing Zon Momomaru's figure. He was still maintaining the action of using the iron block. It seemed that there was nothing serious, but the clothes on his body became tattered under the impact of the laser. Ahem. A stream of scarlet liquid slipped from the corner of Zon Taomaru's mouth. He stopped using the iron block and stared at the steel monster. Interesting, how you did it. As he spoke, Zon Taowen stretched out the back of his hand to wipe the bright red at the corner of his mouth. Karen originally thought that the steel monster could not speak. Unexpectedly, the next second, a loud mechanical sound came from its mouth. It's very simple. The moment the shell bursts out, it keeps shaking at a very fast speed. Advertisement. Zon Taowen nodded thoughtfully. Interesting, I didn't expect that there is such a skill. What's its name? Gunfighting skills. The bird fell slowly, and Karen protected Manchili and climbed down from the bird's back. It's just that his face is terrifyingly gloomy, Karen. When Vegapunk discovered Karen, he was very surprised, but then his face changed slightly, showing guilt and avoidance. Karen stared into Vegapunk's eyes and asked in a deep voice, "Where are the others?" Vegapunk hesitated and finally turned into a sigh. Karen. Zon Momomaru and Steel Monster also discovered Karen's figure and shouted in surprise. "Where are the others?" Karen ignored the two men and asked Vegapunk again. "He's dead." A mechanical voice came from behind Karen, and its tone was very calm. Vegapunk patted Zon Taomaru on the shoulder, winked at him, turned around and walked towards the dense forest. Zon Taomaru hesitated a little, then finally waved his hand and led the members of the Science Guard away. There were only 2 people and 1 steel left at the scene. After a minute of silence, Karen asked, "Where did he die?" The Steel Monster thought for a while and said calmly, "Died the night I left Marijoya." Karen took a deep look at it and asked, "Why? You don't believe me? Don't believe I can cure you?" The Steel Monster waved his hands repeatedly. "No, Karen, I believe you. I believe whatever you say. I just can't forgive myself. I can't forgive my weak self, and I can't face you. You trust me so much, but what did I do? I personally led my comrades to die." Its words were incoherent, and the more it spoke, the more excited it became. "I will never forget that day, when my comrades fell in front of me one by one, and I was unable to stop the despair. I hate myself and why I am so weak." Karen's face was livid, and he clenched his fists tightly. "It's not your fault, it's all my fault. If I promised him, maybe this wouldn't happen." After learning about Jess's accident, he often wondered if the situation would have been different if he had agreed to Doflamingo that day. He knew Jesse was remorseful, and so was he. Advertisement. "No, Karen, this is all because I am too weak. I don't have the strength to protect my comrades at all." The Steel Monster wanted to reach out and fist bump with Karen, but found that his hand had been covered by machinery, and it transformed into a spread-out hand. "Look at me now, I am very happy. This is the feeling of having strength. If I train normally, I will never experience it in my life." Karen sighed and nodded helplessly. "Don't regret it. I only regret not getting this power earlier, if that day." Karen stretched out her hand to touch it and said with a smile, "What are you going to do in the future?" The Steel Monster looked nervous. "Of course I will follow you. You won't want me." Karen laughed and joked. "Ha ha ha, I can't say for sure. After all, I can't afford to support you now that you are so big." "Ha ha," the Steel Monster also laughed. "I don't have a digestive system now. My energy source is the sun. As long as there is the sun, I can move freely. Emotions are still solar energy. How long can you move after replenishing your energy?" Karen continued to ask. 1 month, the Steel Monster replied. It took longer than Karen thought. Seeing Karen thinking deeply, the Steel Monster said again, "Isn't it pretty awesome?" Karen nodded. "Yes, welcome back, Jesse." Hearing this familiar yet unfamiliar name, the Steel Monster's consciousness blurred. "No, Karen, Jesse is dead. What about you now?" The Steel Monster fell into silence, and after a long time he said, "Hello, Major General Cullen. My name is Ascended One." This name echoes deep in the Iron Monster's heart, as if it is a way for him to redefine himself. The former Jesse has died, leaving only this existence that has been reshaped by technology. His body is a combination of metal and machinery, but his heart still contains human emotions and memories. Karen frowned slightly, a complex emotion flashing in his eyes. "Ascended Ones. Give up their names and change them to codenames?" "Yes." The Ascended One's voice is low and firm. "I want to transcend the past and become a new existence. Jess's memory is a part of me, but I am no longer him." Chapter 186 Ice Sculpture Advertisement Marine Headquarters, Marineland. A huge roar came from Sengoku's office. "What? The pirates of New World are going to declare war on us?" "Yes, General of the Warring States period." Huo Shaoshan's steady voice came from the phone bug. "Damn pirates, haven't we already told them our purpose of coming to New World?" Sengoku's face was gloomy. Although he was angry, he was not surprised. He knew that the pirates would not sit back and watch Marines' activities in the New World. A conflict would happen sooner or later, but he did not expect that the conflict would break out so quickly. New World, after all, that is really not within Marine's jurisdiction. Warring States rubbed his temples and asked with a headache, "Did some conflict happen?" "Yes. I heard that Karen beat up the members of the Big Mom Pirates." Warring States frowned. "Karen, so it's the Big Mom Pirates who are attacking our Marine?" Huo Shaoshan shook his head and said with some hesitation, "Also, Kuzan beat up the Kaido Pirates." Kuzan? Now, Warring States was really surprised. Since the Buster Call incident, Kuzan's original enthusiasm has turned into laziness. He has been relatively lazy in the past few years at Marine. The Warring States period knew that he was confused about the orders of the headquarters, so he rarely assigned tasks to him and just let him travel around the sea to relax. If the instigator of the slave escape had not had similar abilities to Kuzan, he would not have assigned Kuzan the task of searching for slaves in the New World. It was said to be a search, but in fact it was just a change of environment for him to relax. Yes, Kuzan and I confirmed it. He said that Jack from the Beast Pirates took the initiative to cause trouble for him. Huo Xiaoshan explained for Kuzan. I heard that Jack saw that Kuzan, a marine, was too arrogant in the new world and wanted to teach him a lesson. Warring States sighed. That's it, how is Jack now? Huo Xiaoshan answered honestly, it was made into an ice sculpture. The corner of Sengoku's mouth twitched slightly, but luckily he didn't kill Jack on the spot, otherwise Kaido would definitely launch a crazy revenge. It's not like it hasn't happened before, although he can't do anything about Marine's headquarters. Marine is not just the headquarters. Huo Xiaoshan asked. What should we do now? Should we go to war with them? If Kaido had a Sengoku, he wouldn't be afraid, but those cunning pirates couldn't just watch Marine defeat them one by one. Marine didn't plan to start a full-scale war until he was fully prepared. Warring States ordered. No need, withdraw first. Advertisement. On the endless sea, a piece of solid ice suddenly appeared. The ice extends infinitely from the feet of the man wearing sunglasses, with no end in sight. Next to him, there are various animal ice sculptures. The most eye-catching one is a giant mammoth with a length of more than 20 meters. The huge teeth make people shudder. At this time, it kept wagging its nose, and its eyes were full of domineering power to destroy everything. Kuzan put a hand on its huge teeth and stroked it gently. Such a pair of teeth should be worth a lot of money. I don't know if Karen is satisfied with it if I give it to him. Are you satisfied? Vegapunk looked at Karen who was playing with the black box. This is the solid speaker that Karen asked him to develop. It is not very big, only the size of a human fist. It is a little less exquisite and a little more restrained than the music box given to Uda. Karen shook it hard, and then threw it into the air, feeling its weight. It was quite heavy, and she didn't know what material it was made of. Satisfied, so satisfied. Karen stuck out her thumb and exclaimed. Produced by Vegapunk, it must be a high-quality product. Randomly choosing a piece of exciting music to play, Karen felt her blood boiling in her body, which was much stronger than the ringtone of a phone bug. He was confident that if he had this speaker last time, Katakuri would not be his opponent even if he did not realize the precognition. In other words, he will win more easily. He felt that he was terrifyingly strong now, and he even had the urge to compete with Whitebeard. Is this a side effect, or does different music have different effects? Karen narrowed her eyes slightly and then changed to a sad song. There are even many technologies that were not possible in previous lives. Don't forget, there's also mine. Karen smiled and patted him on the shoulder. Why don't you take me to the kitchen? When are you ready to leave? All right. Haha, this is a secret. Trust me, Karen, you will never be disappointed. Advertisement. Karen was not in the habit of guessing. If he had doubts, he asked them directly. As long as you're satisfied, Vegapunk said with a smile, his face exuding a very mysterious color. Karen smiled and said, Haha, doctor, it's really mysterious. I look forward to meeting you next time. Zon Taomaru asked on the side. The other guards gathered around Karen and helped him lead the way. Seeing this scene, Vegapunk couldn't help but shake his head and reminded. Zon Taowen raised his head and shouted in surprise. You want to cook by yourself? Proposal. What proposal? Also, it is Karen who gets the BGM god, not the box. No, Karen, I'll take you there now. Karen thought for a while and said, after lunch, the guy from Warring States has been urging me for a long time. I heard that the others have already gathered in G1. Karen joked. What, don't you like it? I happen to feel a little tired too, maybe next time. I have already started preparing for your last proposal. When you come next time, I will give you a surprise. Zon Taowen lowered his head with a sad expression. Zon Taowen suddenly felt that his colleagues were casting malicious glances at him. He couldn't help but trembled. It couldn't be a mobile phone. He remembered that he complained to Vegapunk last time that there were too few entertainment and information channels in the world. Zon Taowen quickly grabbed Karen's wrist and said loudly. Before the Warring States, Karen looked helpless. Although as he expected, Marine wouldn't stay for long, but he didn't expect that he would leave so quickly. Sure enough, a sad emotion emerged spontaneously. He understood that if they were not allowed to eat Karen's food due to his own fault, they would definitely tear him apart. Karen looked up and found that neither Vegapunk, Zon Momomaru, nor Jessie felt this way. After hesitating for a moment, as if he had made up his mind, Vegapunk said slowly. What is it? As he spoke, he turned around and left. Karen was a little confused. Last time he and Vegapunk talked a lot about the power of technology that he knew about in his previous life, including but not limited to innovations in daily travel, energy development, artificial intelligence and other fields. It seems that he has foreseen the scene of his next meeting with Karen. This ability seems to only affect Karen himself. Vegapunk let out a long breath, still feeling guilty for helping Jessie transform without authorization. Chapter 187 The Flying Pirates Advertisement Marine Headquarters, Marineland. Marine Military Academy Family Area. You guy, you are really having a good time. Warring States, who had an afro on his head, led an white sheep into ZFA's living room and saw Zephyr playing with Uda at a glance. Compared to his previous seriousness, Zephyr was now a little more joyful and relaxed. Warring States was in a daze for a while. Zephy's appearance now was very similar to that before that incident. He was sincerely happy for his old friend. That is, after all, I am just an old man who is about to retire now. Zephyr rubbed Uda's head, his eyes full of doting. Retire? Warring States was stunned. He didn't expect this word to come out of Zephy's mouth. Place the prepared souvenirs on the living room table. He said casually. Do you want to retire? Zephyr pointed to the seat beside him and motioned for Warring States to sit down. He said in a relaxed tone. I have ideas and I'm still thinking about it. Over the years in Marine, I have gradually felt that I am not up to my ability. Warring States sighed, but he didn't offer any comfort. He respected his old friend's choice. It's you. I heard that after this incident is over, you will become a real fleet admiral. Why do you still have time to run to me? Zephyr took out the cigar from his arms and finally put it back. Why, I can't see my old friend anymore. Warring States pretended to be angry. Zephyr waved his hand. That's not true, it's just that the situation has been so complicated recently, and your arrival is indeed beyond my expectation. You have the nerve to say that it's not because of your good students. When Warring States heard what Zephyr said, he couldn't help but glare. Whether it's Karen or Kuzan, no, most of the Marines who go to the New World are Zephy's students. Karen? Zephyr said doubtfully. Uda stopped playing and rolled his eyes. Not just him, but Kuzan. Warring States rubbed his head and said helplessly, before I went to New World, I told them not to cause trouble unless absolutely necessary, but they turned a deaf ear to my order. It's okay now. The pirates in the entire New World are ready to take action. The slave capture plan has failed. Compared with Warring States' helplessness, Zephy's eyes lit up. He clapped his hands and said with a smile. Ha ha ha, isn't this a good thing? Those slaves shouldn't be arrested at all. Advertisement, a good thing. I'm afraid the world government doesn't think so. After this commotion, it is estimated that Karen and Kuzan's career will not be so smooth. Warring States stated his purpose of coming here. The 5 elders had just spoken to him, and they will be responsible for the future positions of Karen and Kuzan. Zephyr slammed the table and snorted coldly. A bunch of moths. If it weren't for them, we would have wiped out the pirates long ago. Zephyr. Warring States stood up, stared into his eyes, and said in a deep voice. Without them, there would be no Marine, and there would be no us. I know that both you and Garp are dissatisfied with them, and so am I, but this cannot change the fact. Zephyr also looked into Warring States' eyes not to be outdone, but did not refute. Seeing this, Warring States took a deep breath and sat down again. What to do now? Zephyr asked. Warring States said, I have ordered them to come back first, and I have suppressed the blame from above. Grandpa, drink tea. At this moment, Uda brought out 2 cups of tea from somewhere and handed them to Zephyr and Warring States. Zephyr quickly took it and said softly, Little Uda is so good. Thanks. Warring States' voice also became much quieter. He took a sip and said in a strange tone. This kid is still sensible, unlike some B************* D who doesn't even give guests a glass of water when they come. You. Huh? Zephyr was about to refute when suddenly he felt that the surrounding environment became a bit gloomy. Is it cloudy today? Warring States was stunned, thought for a moment, and said with a smile. How is it possible? It's sunny all day long. As the Marine Headquarters Agent Fleet Admiral, he naturally pays attention to the weather at sea. Speaking of this, he suddenly had an ominous premonition. Bulu bulu bulu. At this moment, a series of urgent phone calls came, and the bad premonition became stronger and stronger. Without hesitation, Warring States directly answered the call. The Marine soldiers standing on the ground all opened their mouths and looked at this scene in disbelief. What happened? Their bodies are huge, their muscles are strong, and they exude a frightening aura, as if they are monsters walking out of a nightmare. Quickly inform the general that the flying pirates are attacking. How could it be? This is Marine's headquarters. Advertisement in the center of the huge sky archipelago, countless beasts with red eyes hovered around the golden lion. Every roar of the beast is like a blade tearing through the air, deafening. Enemy attack. There is an enemy attack. He looked desperate. In this chaotic moment, the veteran's voice was like a thorn, piercing into everyone's heart. It's the golden lion. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed in his mind, and he thought of a guess. Is this the golden lion's revenge? It's over? For veterans of Marine headquarters, this scene is no stranger. A series of frightened sounds came from the Marine soldier on the other end of the phone. Is this the end of the world? Golden Lion? It's over now. Half of the lieutenant generals in the headquarters are in the New World to capture slaves. Even Lieutenant General Garp is not in the headquarters. Without Lieutenant General Garp, who can stop the Golden Lion this time? A Marine soldier collapsed on the ground helplessly. He was so desperate because he had seen the horror of the Golden Lion. Because they experienced it once as early as 7 years ago. Muttered the veteran who had experienced the last attack. Enemy attack? But it was far less exaggerated at that time. Enemy attack. Enemy attack. After many years, Marine headquarters was knocked on the door again. Only the Golden Lion came that day, and today, they swallowed hard. The entire scene was like a prelude to the end of the world. Countless floating islands were like black behemoths, rising from the ground, forming an oppressive shadow that was shooting toward Malinfondo. The alarm at Marine headquarters blared harshly, and red warning lights flashed in the air, reflecting the panic on everyone's faces. The crowd had long been in chaos, and the soldiers were running away in panic, trying to find cover. A huge shadow enveloped the entire Malinfondo, as if an invisible judgment was coming. A sentry standing on the watchtower shouted. In the sky, the roar echoed like thunder, mixed with the huge roar of wild beasts. The sound was shocking. Warring State's heart tightened, and his expression instantly turned serious. Chapter 188 Golden Lion advertisement time goes back to 3 days ago. On some unknown island, a man with blonde hair stood in front of the mirror and slowly looked at himself in the mirror. His golden hair is like a lion's mane, not only the hair, but also the sideburns and beard are golden. What's even more surprising is that there is a rudder on top of his head. But the rudder was not obtrusive on his head, as if it was what he should be. The golden lion leaned forward slightly and looked at himself in the mirror carefully. His facial features are deep and his eyes are wild and unruly, as if the waves of the sea are surging in his heart. Stretching out his hand and stroking the rudder above his head, his memory returned to the day of the Battle of Eightwall. That day, he almost forced the Roger pirates into a desperate situation. If it hadn't been for that storm, it's really not sure who would be the winner of One Piece. But he didn't have much resentment in his heart. If he lost, he would lose. He accepted it. But he couldn't accept that his old enemy would be captured by Marine, and he couldn't accept that the dignified One Piece would die in the East China Sea, the weakest place. This is an insult to the strong. When he heard about the advent of the Great Pirate Era in the prison of Impel Down, he truly understood Roger's intention, but he could not agree with it. What dream? Pirates should be the rulers of the sea. Only reaching the top is what the strong should do. Shiki clenched his fists, showing his determination and anger. Roger, I will let you understand how ridiculous it is for pirates who keep preaching their dreams. He whispered in front of the mirror, his eyes flashing with arrogance. The failure in the naval battle of Eightwall did not defeat him, nor did the failure of Malinfondo. The encounter in Impel Down made him feel ridiculous. Without legs, he used sharp blades instead. Where his legs could not reach, he used his will and determination to conquer. The golden lion turned around, walked out of the room, and stepped onto the beach of the island. The sun shone on his body, and the sea breeze blew gently, bringing a salty smell. Captain, are we really going to raid Marine headquarters today? Indigo walked weirdly and approached Shiki with a worried look on his face. Advertisement for him, today was not the best time. Their original plan was to thoroughly research the ingredients of IQ before starting their revenge plan. However, when the Golden Lion heard that the Black Crow had invaded Marijoya, he could no longer unable to suppress the inner impulse. Seeing the rising stars stepping on the titles of the older generation to stand out one after another, the anxiety and unwillingness ignited in the heart of Golden Lion Shiki became more and more intense. Those young pirates seemed to be chasing the glory of One Piece, but he, once a legend, is now trapped on this island, unable to set sail again. Indigo, I can't wait any longer, he said to his deputy, Indigo, with an unquestionable tone in his voice. The appearance of the Black Crow means the arrival of opportunity. We cannot retreat at this critical moment. We must seize this opportunity and prove to everyone that the Golden Lion Shiki is still the overlord of the sea. Seeing that Indigo was still confused, Shiki continued. We can't be sure how long the IQ classes will last. Now I often feel dazed because of the thing on the top of my head. It has affected my thinking and judgment. Look at it. What I look like now is a crazy big CK. He has been thinking a lot these days. He cannot accept that he is getting older. The Golden Lion can die in battle, but it must not be forgotten. He readily accepted Karen's intentional guidance. He just wanted to tell the world that the evil people you think are just the inheritors of Lousy. Now is the best opportunity. This period is the period when Marinefondo is at his weakest. I want to announce to everyone the high-profile return of Golden Lion Shiki. The sky above Malinfondo was as dark as the calm before a storm, with dark clouds hanging low, as if the entire sky was feeling oppressed by the coming conflict. On the sea, the waves rolled, and the huge waves beat against the embankment of the port, making a deafening roar. On the largest island in the sky, the Golden Lion is like a god, walking in the void. He opened his arms and let out deafening roars. His voice penetrated the dark clouds and penetrated everyone's ears. You didn't expect it. I'm back again, Malavondo. I will make you pay for the humiliation you have brought me tonight. Without Garp, without the elite Marine Vando, how are you going to stop me? Gia ha ha ha. Tonight, here, there will be a river of blood. The Golden Lion clenched his fists, and the island behind him began to vibrate violently, as if in response to his roar. Not only the island behind him, but the entire Marineland was also trembling. The Marine soldiers in Malinfondo felt a low and strong vibration coming from under their feet, as if the earth was trembling for the coming catastrophe. Advertisement gradually, they felt something was wrong, because their eyesight was slowly rising. What happened? Malavondo is floating. Is this the big pirate? A thought came to everyone's mind at the same time. Malinfondo was taken over by the Golden Lion. As soon as this thought came to mind, They collapsed on the ground in disbelief. This kind of battle was simply beyond their imagination. Who will save us? What about the Warring States period? It's over, it's completely over now. The Golden Lion stood in the air, looking down at the situation in front of him with great satisfaction, a proud smile on his lips. Marine Fando's defense was as fragile as paper under his attack, and the fear and despair of the Marine soldiers became increasingly clear in his eyes. Have you seen it? This is the so-called Marine, in front of my Golden Lion. They are just a group of incompetent ants. He taunted loudly, and his voice echoed on the battlefield, as if to crown the slaughter. Lion power destroy the world. The Golden Lion roared, and with his words, the surrounding floating islands began to rotate, like a magic top, exuding a suffocating sense of oppression. The boulders, buildings, and even Marine's weapons on the island floated under his control and flew in the direction of Marinefondo. Then came the rotating islands, which hit Marinefondo like cannonballs. 7 years later, he changed his profession from a warrior to a magician. Every strike he made was devastating and thrilling. Gia ha ha ha. Enjoy the gift I brought you. Just when he was about to continue enjoying his victory, suddenly, a strong light flashed out from the distant sea. The Golden Lion was stunned for a moment, his eyes turned to the light, and then he showed a faint smile. He is indeed the fastest man in the world. Immediately after a burst of fire, a golden giant slowly appeared from the depths of Marinefondo. Chapter 189 The General Appears Advertisement, Shiki. Angry roars came from the depths of Marinefondo. Over the years, after Sengoku was trained as the next Marine Fleet Admiral, his chances of taking action became less and less. Gradually, both Marines and pirates were impressed by his intelligence. They called him, Smart General Sengoku. The pirates in this sea seem to have forgotten his previous name. He is the Warring States period of Buddha, a man who always implements the justice of the king. Gia ha ha ha, who do I think this is? Isn't this the Marine who followed Garp back then? The Golden Lion's wild laughter echoed on the battlefield. Marinefondo doesn't have Garp today, you don't think you can still win, do you? Back then, the Golden Lion single-handedly challenged the entire Marinefondo. Although he failed in the end, most of Marinefondo was destroyed by him. Now Marinefondo still has his once masterpiece. Golden Lion, have you forgotten that you still have me? Sakaski looked gloomy, and his fists were filled with hot lava. As he moved, the lava dripped to the ground and billowed with thick smoke. The lava kid who followed Garp back then. The Golden Lion plucked his ears with disdain on his face. He was indeed somewhat impressed by this kid, but he didn't care. The Golden Lion sneered confidently. Even you two are no match for me, because I am stronger than before. Oh yo, it's so scary, just count me in. The Golden Flash finally arrived on the battlefield. It was not Perusalino or someone else. He was originally near the Sabodi Islands. After receiving the news of the Golden Lion's attack on Marinefondo, he appeared on the battlefield in an instant. This was the speed of the shining fruit. This is the strongest combat power of Marine Headquarters, the general level. Rao Shijiang was also feeling a bit of pressure, but at the same time he felt more and more that it was the right decision for him to leave the mountain early. Talented people have emerged from generation to generation, and his era is gradually fading away. He does not want to be written down as a loser by history. A strong fighting spirit ignited in the Golden Lion's heart. Although he was no longer young, he still had strong strength and rich combat experience. Gia ha ha ha, little devils, you can't win a battle with more people. The Golden Lion roared, and the surrounding floating islands began to rotate under his control, forming huge rocks that poured towards Perusalino and Sakaski. Advertisement, yeah? Perusalino smiled slightly and was noncommittal. His figure was like electricity, and he appeared in front of the Golden Lion in an instant, and a flashing blade condensed in his hand, pointing directly at the Golden Lion's heart. Tien Kong Yun sword. The Golden Lion snorted coldly, kicked his legs suddenly, and the blade made a deafening sound under his feet. His body was like an enraged lion, jumping back instantly to avoid Perusalino's attack. Flash Kid, have you forgotten my identity? How dare you play with a sword in front of me? Lousy is a great swordsman. After saying that, the Golden Lion flipped in the air, its legs were like two lightning bolts, and the blade drew sharp arcs in the air, approaching Perusalino. Boom! With a loud noise, the Golden Lion's blade collided with Perusalino's flash in the air, bursting out with a dazzling light, as if a star was falling. The surrounding air was distorted by the impact, creating a strong air current that kicked up dust and gravel, forming a huge storm. Perusalino was slightly stunned. He didn't expect the power of the Golden Lion to be so powerful. His figure was like lightning and he quickly retreated. At the same time, his arms stretched out, and dazzling light bullets were released like Gatling's bullets. 8-foot Magatama. Each light bullet carries powerful energy, piercing the air and making a harsh sound. Facing these ferocious creatures, their morale is already in jeopardy. Dark Hound. What kind of monsters are these? Warring States, who was rushing to the battlefield, saw this scene and sighed helplessly. As the commander of the entire army, although he has strong strength, his most important responsibility is to stabilize the morale of the army. Calm down. Everyone, calm down. On top of that, they haven't eaten for 3 days. Following Sakaski's roar, A stream of lava broke through the sky and instantly shattered the stone wall. Bullets have no effect on them, the Golden Lion thought to himself, and then he started to fight back. Advertisement. The hearts of the warring states period became heavier and heavier, and the panic among the soldiers spread like wildfire. He had already omitted conquerors when these beasts appeared. Unfortunately, these beasts may have lost their sense and conquerors was completely ineffective. Each of them had fangs and sharp claws, and exuded a terrifying aura. Like a group of out-of-control beasts, they rushed towards the center of Malinfondo. Lousy is a golden lion. These are all animals that became violent after eating plants containing IQ on the island of Vermeo. No, their speed is too fast, you can't hit them at all, and using cannonballs will accidentally injure your teammates. Gia ha ha ha, no matter how many people come, it's all in vain. This battle must be fought quickly, he does not have the ability to fly like Perusolino. Besides, I'm not alone this time. Their eyes flashed with ferocious light, as if they had completely lost their minds, leaving only the instinct to kill. Malinfondo was already on the verge of collapse, flying higher and higher, and now there were ferocious beasts invading. The warring states period knew that if measures were not taken in time, the entire city would fall into chaos. Warring states shouted loudly, his voice like a strong wind, trying to dispel the fear in the hearts of the soldiers. The voice of the warring states period sounded again, firm and powerful. Sakaski stepped on the moonwalk and stood in the air, staring into the golden lion's pupils, thinking secretly. He waved his palm lightly, and the stone wall made a deafening roar under the bombardment of light bullets, but it still stood firm. In the face of these ferocious creatures, traditional long-range attacks are no longer effective. Only close combat can have a chance to fight back. Do you think this trick can defeat me? He waved his palm again, and the boulders on the stone wall flew towards Perusolino like cannonballs, carrying terrifying power, as if they were going to crush him completely. No matter how powerful the light bullet is, it can't shake my defense. Damn it. The golden lion roared angrily, and the huge island floating in the air began to slowly crash towards Malinfondo. The beasts on the island bared their fangs and galloped towards the depths of Malinfondo. Pull out the cannon. The golden lion smiled coldly, full of confidence in his heart. Don't forget that I am still there. Abandon the cannonballs and prepare for close combat. The golden lion smiled disdainfully, and with a thought, the debris floating in the sky instantly surrounded him, forming an airtight stone wall. Chapter 190 Civilian Area Advertisement. The soldiers looked at each other, although their hearts were still full of fear, but the responsibility from the soldiers made them all choose to trust their commanders. They quickly adjusted their formation, put down their firearms, picked up their melee weapons, and prepared for the coming impact. The whole army obeys the order. We must form a strong defense line to resist the attacks of these beasts. Warring States continued to command, his eyes as bright as a torch, scanning the surrounding soldiers. Soldiers in the front row, prepare to attack. Prepare support in the back row and be on standby at any time. The soldiers began to move quickly to form a solid line of defense. Remember, we are the guardians of Malinfondo, and we must not let these beasts trample our home. Warring States roared loudly, the sound shook the whole country. Yes. The soldiers responded in unison, and their voices were like a torrent, converging into a powerful force. They were the elites of the Marines. At this moment, their courage and determination were inspired. They clenched the weapons in their hands and stared firmly ahead, waiting for the impact of those ferocious creatures. Warring States stood in front of the formation, exuding a powerful aura. He was the core of this army and their spiritual support. He took a deep breath and shouted, "Go!" As he shouted, the soldiers shouted in unison and charged forward. Soon, there was a fierce collision on the battlefield, and the soldiers in the front row fought desperately with the ferocious beasts. The clash of swords and claws made a deafening sound, and the air was filled with the smell of blood. Although under the organization of the Warring States period, Marine soldiers have set up a strong defense line, the situation is still precarious in the face of a huge number of monsters. You know, this is the flying pirates, and the beasts' attacks will naturally not come from one direction, but from all directions. Fleet Admiral, rear. A Major General Marine looked worriedly in the direction of the civilian area, where his family and friends lived, and it was also the softest place in his heart. Not just him, a large part of the families of the Marines on the battlefield lived there. The beasts of the flying pirates came like a tide, and the sheer number made people feel extremely desperate. Everyone knows that if the enemy is allowed to break through the defense line, civilian areas will suffer a devastating blow. Warring States' voice was like a bell, and he said firmly, "Don't worry, there is General Zephyr there." General Zephyr. After hearing Warring States' comfort, all the soldiers' eyes lit up and a glimmer of hope ignited in their hearts. Advertisement, yes, General Zephyr will never let us down. At the same time, there are civilian areas and commercial areas in the rear of Marinefondo. Help! What kind of monster is this? Disperse quickly, it will be safe once we reach the Marine family area. Mom, I want Mom. Ha ha ha, it's the end of the world. Ooh, it's eating my legs. The wailings of civilians and the cries of fear intertwined, echoing in the slums and commercial areas behind Marinavando. Those streets that should have been peaceful are now shrouded in panic and despair. The beasts of the sky pirates swept in like a violent storm, tearing apart innocent lives, which was heartbreaking. Quick! Run over there! A young mother desperately pulled her child with fear in her eyes. She knew that only by escaping to the marine family area could she find a glimmer of safety. Don't stop! We can't get caught! Her voice seemed weak in despair, but still firm. The child cried in her arms, seeming to feel the mother's fear, and his heart was full of uneasiness. Ooh! I don't want to die. A little girl was trembling in the corner, tears streaming down her face. She held a worn-out teddy bear in her hand, which was her only support. Don't be afraid, baby, Daddy is here. A young father ran desperately towards his daughter. However, just as he got closer, a beast suddenly pounced on him with a roar that ripped through the air. Let's go! The young father pushed his daughter away with all his strength and faced the monster himself. Dad! The little girl's cries were heartbreaking, but she was helpless and could only watch her father being swallowed by the giant beast. Despair and fear came like a tide, almost drowning her. Boom! Advertisement. There was a huge roar that was deafening. The little girl raised her head in confusion. A purple-haired man appeared in front of her with his back to her. His body was like a solid stone, and a pair of black iron fists stopped him and rushed towards her father. The beast is coming. Then, in the little girl's shocked eyes, the huge body of the giant beast was torn into pieces by the purple-haired man. Blood and hair spattered, and the air was filled with a pungent smell. He threw the giant beast's body aside, and the surrounding giant beasts that were still chasing the crowd moved closer to its corpse and quickly devoured it. It's Marine General, Black Arm, Zephyr, the little girl's father exclaimed. Run this way. Follow me. Zephyr turned around and shouted loudly, his purple hair flying in the wind, his eyes firm and powerful, as if they could penetrate the darkness of despair. The little girl's father held his daughter's hand tightly and followed Zephy's guidance without hesitation, evacuating in the direction of Marine General School's family area. There are many strong Marine soldiers gathered there, and under the command of Zephyr, they are carrying out defensive deployment in an orderly manner. The wild beasts rushed towards him wildly, grinning ferociously and opening their bloody mouths, trying to devour more innocent lives. Zephy's eyes flashed with anger, and every attack he made was full of anger. His fist hit the head of a giant beast, knocking it to the ground instantly. Without any hesitation, Zephyr directly forced the blood out of its body, exuding a strong smell of blood, and threw it towards the herd of beasts. Just like before, the beast that was chasing the civilians instantly changed its direction, pounced on the beast, and fought to tear it apart, holding its corpse. Zephy's eyes were cold and he sighed deeply. Although he could kill these beasts easily, there were too many of them. He knew that there were more innocent people where he couldn't see. Civilians are under attack. This feeling of powerlessness engulfed his heart, making him feel heavier and heavier. Zephy's hands clenched into fists, his nails dug deeply into his palms, and blood oozed out. At this moment, the wild beasts that were originally violent seemed to be attracted by an invisible force, and their movements gradually slowed down, and even stopped rushing towards the civilians. Following this, a slightly immature singing voice came from the direction of the family area of General Marine School. The song was clear and sweet, as if it was a ray of sunshine in this atmosphere of chaos and fear. Zephy's heart was shocked, and he was instantly attracted by the familiar melody. He looked up and saw that the source of the singing was a little girl. She was standing on the balcony of the family area, holding a special music box in her hand. There is a small microphone above the music box. The little girl is holding the music box and singing loudly. The sun shines on her body through the clouds, as if coating her with a layer of golden brilliance. Her voice is like a divine angel soothing restless beasts and fearful civilians. Chapter 191 Singing Advertisement. Devil fruits are the result of human hopes and dreams, just as hockey is the result of one's will. Every devil fruit is a possible evolutionary desire of human beings. In the past, some people said to themselves, if I can do this. Others said, if I can do that. And are evolving somewhere along the line, this desire turned into the power displayed by the devil fruit. Uda, who took the song Fruit in the original work, wanted to lead fans to build a world without suffering, so she obtained the virtual space, Uda World, that introduced others to enter through singing. Now she desperately wants to protect the people, so her fruit power has become a comforting power. Not just humans, judging from the performance on the battlefield, her singing can also affect creatures driven by rage and pain, even beasts that should be enemies. In Uda's song, the chaos on the battlefield seemed to be smoothed by an invisible force. The roars of the beasts gradually turned into deep roars, and finally stopped attacking. Zephyr stared at Uda blankly, his heart filled with shock and emotion. Uda's song Fruit was given to him by him, and now Uda is using the power of the song Fruit to turn the battlefield around. His heart was both proud and full of longing for the future. Who is she? What is she doing? She was singing. When I heard her singing, I felt filled with peace. The Marine soldiers communicated in low voices, with incredible light flashing in their eyes. Uda's singing was like the spring sunshine, warm and soft, dispelling the gloom in their hearts. Her singing soothes the soul. She must be an angel. She is an angel sent by God to protect us. Such a pure song. Even these damn beasts have been purified. Yes, I have never heard such beautiful singing. Woo, Mom, we are saved. Not only the Marine soldiers, but also the civilians who escaped from the beast's mouth were even more touched. For them, the appearance of Uda is tantamount to the god of salvation and disaster. On the battlefield, wherever the singing could cover the place, the beasts stopped attacking one after another, as if bound by an invisible force. Their eyes no longer flashed with anger and madness, but gradually revealed a kind of confusion and gentleness. It's just that the sound produced by the music box is limited after all. Those places that are not enveloped by the singing are still filled with the smoke and fear of the battle. Advertisement Zephyr discovered this keenly, and he quickly ran in the direction of Uda. He realized that Uda's song must spread throughout the battlefield, only in this way can innocent lives on Marinevando be saved. So, he planned to make a decision that went against Marine headquarters. On the other side, Sengoku is sitting in the middle, directing the Marines' orderly defense, but there are too many beasts on the battlefield. The densely packed beasts were like a tidal wave, all of them fearless of death. They rushed towards Marines' defense line crazily. Basically, a soldier died in the mouth of these beasts every second. Warring States frowned, and for a moment there was no other better way. If Marines' elites were all in Marine fandom, then he was confident that he would be able to control the situation quickly and would never be as passive as these. Damn Shiki, you really know how to pick your time. Warring States cursed angrily and had no choice but to continue to boost morale. Keep your formation and don't let them break through. The battle in the air also came to a stalemate. The Golden Lion was in the air and could deal with the two generals alone. Instead, he showed no sign of weakness and became more and more courageous as he fought. Compared with the Golden Lion in the theater version, today's Golden Lion is not too late, and he still has the determination to reach the top. He wants to be the strongest and the king of the world. Gia ha ha ha. I have to admit that you guys are quite capable, but do you really think you can stop me? The Golden Lion laughed wildly in the air, and the sound was as deafening as thunder. His eyes flashed with fanatical light, as if he was enjoying the pleasure brought by this battle. It's really ridiculous. Let me show you my true strength. Perusolino's expression changed slightly, and he didn't understand what the Golden Lion meant. The battle was already so fierce. Could it be that the Golden Lion hadn't used its true power yet? Sakaski's expression on the other side was even more gloomy. The air was not his home field, and he could not do whatever he wanted in the air. In the battle with the Golden Lion, he not only had to consider the Golden Lion's attack rhythm, but also had to use moonwalk distractedly and pay attention to his placement. Haha, Golden Lion, what are you pretending to be? With your current mutilated body, do you think you can win? Advertisement Sakaski smiled coldly, with disdain in his tone. The Golden Lion was stunned, as if Sakaski had hit a painful spot in his heart. Although his disabled legs were his own choice, it did not mean that others could mention it at will. Sakaski didn't care about this, and his taunting continued. The so-called Emperor of the Sea is just a joke in my opinion. Whitebeard claims to be the strongest in the world, but in fact he is just an old man who is gradually entering his old age. Kaido the Beast is an out-and-out weakling. Big Mom is not much better, a crazy woman controlled by disease. As for you, Golden Lion, you are obviously just a disabled person, but you still want to destroy Malinfondo. Are these pirates? They are old, weak, sick and disabled, what a joke. Although Sakaski is a rockberry fruit user, his temper is not actually hot. On the contrary, his calmness and thoughtfulness make him particularly dangerous in battle. He seems to be better at igniting other people's emotions than burning himself. At this moment, he used verbal attacks to try to tear apart the Golden Lion's self-confidence, trying to gain an absolute psychological advantage. Anger can sometimes make people lose their minds and expose their flaws. Unfortunately, today he faced the Golden Lion. A man who is bent on fighting for the world is better at converting anger into his own strength than being swayed by anger. The Golden Lion stared at Sakaski, and the anger gradually ignited in his heart. Gia ha 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 ha, Lava Brat. I admit that your verbal offensive is effective, but you seem to have forgotten that there is a kind of power that becomes even more terrifying when fueled by anger. Oh, lousy remembered, you are just a dog beside Tianlong, how can you understand the consciousness I have? Boom. Black-red air currents that are clearly visible to the naked eye rise from the Golden Lion's body, intertwining like a wild dragon out of the sea. They entwined and circled each other, forming a huge and mysterious vortex. Wherever these black-red airflows passed, the clouds were ruthlessly torn apart. The sky, which was already covered in dark clouds, seemed to be a little more gloomy and depressing at this moment. The entire battlefield was filled with a violent atmosphere, as if the end of the world was coming. Chapter 192 The First Achievement Advertisement, The Sky is Falling? A Marine soldier raised his head and looked at the rolling dark clouds and entangled black-red airflow in horror. His hands trembled involuntarily, and his heart was filled with uneasiness. As if they had a premonition of the impending disaster, the surrounding soldiers also stopped their movements and focused their eyes on the threatening vortex. Some Marine recruits who were not conscious enough even fainted directly. The pressure unleashed by the Golden Lion was simply not something they could withstand. Fortunately, these recruits were at the back and did not cause much impact on the front line. This is the power of the Golden Lion, it's so terrifying. Such an opponent is simply impossible to defeat. Only Lieutenant General Garp can deal with him. Where is Lieutenant General Garp? He is our marine hero. Too strong, I feel like a bug in front of him. How can we continue to fight? The soldiers' murmurs surged like a tide, and fear spread in their hearts like a biting cold wind. Facing the almost overwhelming power of the Golden Lion, many people began to waver and had thoughts of retreating. Damn it. Why are you thinking so much? Of course the Golden Lions will be dealt with by generals. Our goal is just to stop these beasts. Soon, a soldier stepped forward, his voice as loud as a war drum, breaking the fear in the hearts of the soldiers. He has a cross scar on his chin, a hooked nose, and his eyes are as sharp as an eagle, revealing a firmness and determination. We are Marine. We don't fight to escape. No matter how powerful the Golden Lion is, it can't shake our determination. He clenched his fists and said passionately, our duty is to protect our companions and defend justice. No matter how powerful the enemy is, we cannot retreat. The surrounding soldiers were infected by his momentum, and the low-pitched discussions gradually subsided, replaced by a high-spirited fighting spirit. The soldiers' courage was like a torch, igniting hope in everyone's heart. Sengoku looked at the soldier in surprise, and the Marine's information appeared in his mind. Drake, born in North Blue, is the son of former Marine General Diaz Barreros. He was rescued during a pirate attack and later joined Marine and successfully graduated from the Marine General School. Advertisement, he is indeed an extraordinary young man. Warring States sighed secretly in his heart. Drake is right, don't worry about the Golden Lions, we just need to deal with these beasts with all our strength. Warring States said loudly, his voice as loud as a bell, spreading throughout the battlefield. Jia ha 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 ha, have you seen it? This is the real power that belongs to the strong. There was only a wrong name, not a wrong nickname. Shiki was really like a mad lion, roaring wantonly on the battlefield under the blessing of anger. It's so scary, it's going to be difficult to deal with now. Perusalino scratched his head, his tone was strange, and his expression was not as relaxed as it was at the beginning. Damn B****************. D. Sakaski clenched his fists like a volcano about to erupt. His face was covered with angry shadows, and his eyes were as sharp blades, staring at the frantic Shiki. Jia ha ha ha. Be afraid. Be angry. I just love seeing your angry expressions. Look at those Marines. They were knocked down by wild beasts one by one. They were like helpless lambs. I think before they die, they will really hate why they became Marines. Justice? The so-called justice, in the face of absolute strength, will be. Before he finished speaking, the angry Sakaski could no longer hold back the anger in his heart. Like a bursting volcano, it erupted instantly, releasing blazing flames. Sakaski's fists were clenched, the breath all over his body was burning like fire, and the surrounding air was distorted by his anger. You D. You don't even understand what justice is. He roared angrily, and the flames surged inside his body, as if they were ready to devour everything at any time. Justice? Ha. Shiki sneered, crossing his hands on his chest, with an expression on his face like a mocking devil. Your justice is meaningless in front of me. Your anger will only make me more excited. Advertisement, I will make you pay for your arrogance. Sakaski could no longer suppress himself. He roared angrily, and his arms instantly transformed into elements, turning into huge lava fists made of lava. Then, his fists slammed towards the Golden Lion like a volcano erupting. Big fire breathing. With one punch, endless magma burst out instantly, like a meteor about to fall to the ground. Blazing heat streaked across the sky, and all the combustible things around him began to spontaneously ignite, evaporate, and turn into ashes. The air was filled with a pungent smell of burning, cracks even appeared on the ground, and the heat of the lava made the surrounding environment distorted. The Golden Lion's eyes condensed, and at this moment he truly realized how terrifying Logia was. Good boy, you are really messy, crazier than me. He couldn't help but admire, as the two famous swords of Yingxi and Kumyu met at his feet, and the black and red domineering energy flowed crazily and entwined. Using the body as the hilt of the sword, the two swords become one. Lion Thousand Slice Valley. This is a move that was used by Karen in Marijoya. This time, it was reproduced authentically by Golden Lion in Marineland. The sword move with conquerors attached is more powerful than the one Karen used in Marijoya. The slashes struck down like thunder, and the air seemed to be torn apart, making a deafening roar. The Golden Lion's two swords danced, the black and red sword light flashed, and they rushed towards Sakaski's lava like a violent storm. Each sword carries unparalleled power, as if it wants to cut off everything in its way. Soon, the large-scale, big fire, was chopped into pieces by the Golden Lion. At this time, Malinfondo was like a real volcano erupting, with lava falling on the ground, in the forest, in the sea, and in the houses. Malinfondo was filled with fire everywhere. The natural disaster-level power was fully revealed, and the entire battlefield seemed to be torn apart, with flames and storms intertwining into a doomsday scene. The battle between Sakaski and the Golden Lion has transcended personal confrontation and become a carnival of nature and power. The Golden Lion laughed loudly, the sound was deafening and resounded throughout the sky. Jia ha ha ha, not bad, Lava Brat, I'll give you credit for capturing Malinfondo. Chapter 193 The Voice on the Radio Advertisement. Sakaski. What the hell are you doing? The Marines, who were already struggling to deal with the swarm of beasts, were thrown into disarray in an instant. Warring States roared to the sky, looking helpless. He thought of Kuzan. If he were at Marine headquarters at this time, he would never act as randomly as Sakaski. A large breach was quickly formed where the lava fell, and more beasts rushed towards the civilian area like crazy. Oops. Warring States cursed angrily. He was very confident in Zephyr, but he only had one person. Half of the people who stayed at the Marine General Academy were recruits from the training camp. No matter how good Zephyr taught him, he could not deny that most of them are recruiters. What should I do, Fleet Admiral? Do you want to send someone to support? Lieutenant General Ichika said. Warring States looked thoughtful, and he figured it out in just a moment. If you can't even protect your family at home, how many Marines are still willing to serve Marine? The question is how many people should be transferred. On the battlefield, time is life, and there is no time to make the most accurate judgment for the Warring States period. Just when the Warring States period was about to give the order, a huge voice came from the direction of the highest point of Marinefondo. This is Marine's highest level broadcast, and it can clearly convey the sound throughout Marineland. It should be started like this. Damn, it's really loud. This voice? It's Zephyr. Warring States instantly recognized the voice of his old friend. Not just him, more than half of the Marines present recognized ZFA's voice. It's the instructor's voice. Teacher Zephyr, this is the highest level of broadcasting. I heard that only Fleet Admiral is qualified to enter and issue orders. I really miss it. I remember the last time I heard Teacher ZFA's voice, he told us that it was the worst class he had ever taught. Ha 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 ha, brother, that's what instructor said about us at that time. Why is Teacher Zephyr in the broadcast room? Yes, didn't the Warring States General say that Instructor Zephyr was protecting the people in the rear? It goes without saying that Teacher Zephyr must have other tasks. Advertisement. The soldiers looked at each other with big eyes and small eyes. Although they had doubts in their hearts, they didn't have too many questions. They all understood ZFA's character. The same goes for the Warring States period. Apart from the initial shock, the rest was filled with joy. Because he knew that Zephyr would not go to the broadcasting studio in violation of the rules for no reason, and there must be a reason for him to do so. There was a high probability that he had found a way to break the situation, but Warring States didn't understand why he didn't notify him directly and instead used the radio. Grandpa, do you want Uda to sing here? A childish little girl's voice came, and just by hearing the voice, you knew how cute she was. Zephyr said, yes, Uda, you can just sing loudly here, just sing the song just now. Uda's voice seemed a little twisted. Can this help Grandpa and the big brothers and sisters who live here? Zephyr reported Uda to the table and pointed the microphone at her mouth. Yes, Uda, big brother and big sister also want to hear your singing. You love singing the most, right? Oh my god, is this really Teacher ZFA's voice? It turns out that Teacher Zephyr also has such a gentle side. Is that little girl named Uda the granddaughter of Teacher Zephyr? But I heard that Teacher ZFA's family was killed by the damn pirates. Shouldn't you care why the instructor entered the broadcast room and brought his granddaughter with him? The instructor meant that he wanted his granddaughter to sing. Isn't this a joke? Who is still in the mood to listen to singing at this time? Go away, Teacher Zephyr is not such a person, he must have his own intentions for doing this. There was another sound on the other end of the broadcast. It was the sound of the microphone being moved, as if a small hand was holding it. Come on Uda, Then a piece of music came from the broadcasting room. The voice was tender and mixed with tension. Both the sound and the melody gave people a sense of tranquility. It's just that this language seems very mysterious, they have never heard of this special language. The music is like a trickle, slowly flowing into everyone's heart, instantly dispelling the tense atmosphere before the battle. The soldiers felt a sense of tranquility in this gentle melody, as if they were in a peaceful ocean, isolated from the surrounding noise and danger. As that piece of music echoed, the atmosphere on the battlefield quietly changed. The beasts are listening to music too, Sengoku muttered dissatisfiedly. I seem to have heard similar notes in some mysterious place. This is impossible. This is music, advertisement. At this moment, the Marines were shocked to find that the originally ferocious enemy pirates and violent beasts also stopped moving. A young soldier asked in a low voice, with a bit of trembling in his voice, and an uneasy light flashed in his eyes. It's Teacher Zephyr. No, it's the little girl named Uda, she saved Marinefondo. Another soldier shook his head, filled with doubts. Is it the influence of this song? With a thud, the beast fell heavily to the ground, and its body began to twist and twitch. What now? What's going on? Bastiu held a long-handled saw blade and quickly came to a beast. Without hesitation, he used the long-handled saw blade to chop off its lower abdomen. What's going on? Lieutenant General of Marine Headquarters, Bastiu. The strength of their hands on the hilt of the sword gradually relaxed, and their eyes showed confusion. Seeing the changes on the battlefield, Sengoku's frown gradually relaxed. Unexpectedly, the little girl who poured him tea just now would become the hero who saved Marinefondo. Oh my god, look at those beasts, what are they doing? The anger on the faces of the marine soldiers who were roaring and preparing to charge was gradually replaced by a strange tranquility. Okay. I don't know. With a puff sound, the long knife penetrated the flesh, and blood sprayed everywhere. Try to find a wild beast first to see if they are really controlled. Devil fruit. The beast that received the heavy blow was in pain, its eyes instantly turned blood red, and it rushed directly towards Bastille. What kind of music is this? Although I don't understand it, it gives people a sense of tranquility. He seemed to be attracted by the melody, his eyes were dull and his ears were twitching slightly, as if he was listening to the distant singing. A lieutenant general wearing a horn mask with many holes asked Sengoku. Roar. But Bastille was already prepared, and he easily dodged it by turning slightly sideways. Then, his eyes flickered, and the long-handled saw blade in his hand was sent directly into the beast's neck. It seems that it can only appease the emotions, but it does not mean that the danger is not sensed. There are only some real elites who can resist because of their strong weapons. Haha, this old B********* D made me worry in vain, it sounds so good. Chapter 194 Insect Flying Advertisement Warring States saw this and was not surprised. Okay, Bastille, don't worry about them for now. Let's arrange manpower to treat the wounded first. Bastille nodded and quickly turned around and left. The music continues, but Sengoku is not sure how long Uda can last, because using devil fruit is linked to physical strength, and Uda is just a little girl. However, Warring States has always understood that the battlefield is not here at all. Then, he cast his sight in the air. The black sky hangs low. Bright stars follow Chongerfe, who are you missing? The stars in the sky are crying, roses on the ground withered. Cold wind blowing as long as I have you with me. As the song sounded, Golden Lion's revenge plan was about to be extinguished. He was only one person. He tried it personally in 5 years, but he failed at the cost of his legs. He only has 2 legs, and 5 years ago he was just an ordinary big pirate, but today he is the chief culprit of Marijoya. He knew very well that if he failed again, what awaited him would not be prison, but his own life. He hasn't lived enough yet, so fortunately, he has been fully prepared. He was confident that he could leave easily, and even Perusolino couldn't stop him. It seems that the outcome is decided. Golden Lion, you can't run away this time. Although Sakaski has been fighting with the Golden Lion, it does not affect his ability to see the battlefield below. What a terrifying power. It actually has the power to soothe people's hearts. Brusolino's expression also became much more relaxed, although he was not very nervous before. To the surprise of Sakaski and Perusolino, the Golden Lion actually smiled after being stunned for a short time. Advertisement, Gia ha 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 ha, first didn't expect Marine to still have this secret. What's more, I didn't expect that after the Battle of 8 Wall, I would be affected by the environment again. The Golden Lion's laughter echoed in the wind, his face was full of arrogance and confidence, and his eyes shone with a strange light. It's frighteningly bright. Laugh. You won't be able to laugh anymore anyway, just enjoy these rare few minutes quietly. Sakaski mocked lightly. Gia ha ha ha, don't you think I should laugh? Gia ha ha ha. The Golden Lion laughed a few more times, until tears came out of his eyes. I really want to thank you, really, thank you, what do you mean? Sakaski stopped smiling, thinking of the Golden Lion's mockery of him just now. No, what I should be grateful for is this singing voice, Uda, right? I remember her. What are you going to do? Perusolino put away his relaxed attitude. He knew that Uda was Karen's daughter, and Karen dared to attack Marijoya and kill the celestial dragon for his subordinates. If something went wrong with his daughter, Perusolino couldn't believe what Karen would do. No, it's not just Karen. After today, Uda will be the hero of Maliafondo. Perusolino estimates that the whole of Maliafondo will remember her name. The guardian of Malinfondo, Kukuloeta. The Golden Lion disagreed and continued, if she hadn't woken me up with her singing, I would have been dormant for many years as planned. After a few years, I would have become the laughingstock of this sea. Fortunately, it's not too late now. I'm still young and still have time to fight you. So, I'd like to thank her. If I have the chance, I wouldn't mind sending her to hell with my own hands. Gia ha 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 ha. Young? It's really laughable. Sakaski smiled coldly. Wake up, your time has passed. As long as I don't die, my era will never pass, Golden Lion said calmly. At this moment, Warring States finally freed up his hands, stepped on Moonwalk, and the Buddha's light shone everywhere. Shiki. You can't run away. I will send you to see Roger today. He stared closely at the Golden Lion's every move, his eyes full of anger. 3 general levels. Even Roger was not sure that he could successfully escape under the attack of 3 generals alone, not to mention that there was the fastest Perusolino here. Advertisement, but Golden Lion dare. Not only that, he also has to take the initiative. I want to leave, but no one can stop me. Gia ha 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 ha, good to come. I want you to watch how Marine Fando is destroyed. Gia ha 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 ha. When the Golden Lion saw the arrival of the Warring States period, his body flew higher and higher, and he directly gave up the abilities except for himself and Malinfondo. including the island of Vermeo where he stayed after escaping from prison, as well as the densely populated islands behind him. With the loss of the blessing of Piao Piao fruit, these flying islands instantly fell downwards. On the contrary, Malinfondo was rising faster and faster, and would soon reach the heights where the Warring States period and the others were. Damn it, what are you going to do? Sengoku shouted angrily. The Golden Lion didn't answer him. Sakaski and Perusalino were about to give chase, but were stopped by Warring States. What are you doing? If you don't chase me, I will be packed away by him. Sakaski looked at Sengoku angrily. He can't take him away. He wants to throw Malinfondo down from a high place, just like he did just now. Perusalino looked solemn as he spoke and pointed to the other islands that were left behind. The densely packed islands are like dumplings, rushing to throw them into the sea. The moment they touched the sea surface, they made a deafening sound, and the entire sea surface trembled. The huge water splashes are like towering water columns, rising into the sky in an instant, rolling up countless waves, like the roar of the angry sea. But soon these splashes were destroyed by new falling islands. The islands collided with each other and disintegrated instantly. One can imagine the life on the island. Warring States cursed angrily. Damn Golden Lion, what a madman. When Sakaski heard this, he stopped pursuing him, although he sometimes did not care about the lives of innocent people for the sake of the mission, or he chose what he thought was the greatest gain. But this is the entire Malinfondo, and this is Marine's hope. He cannot possibly watch Marinefondo be destroyed. In reality, after the Golden Lion took over Malinfondo, he was already in an invincible position. As he said, if he wants to leave, no one can stop him. Jia ha 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 ha, Malinfondo is my first gift to this world. If you can still survive, remember to come to the East China Sea to find me. The next moment, the entire Malinfondo began to fall rapidly. Chapter 195 Ice Age Advertisement, what's going on? Am I flying? No, it's Malinfondo who's flying. The power of the Golden Lion is too terrifying. Protect the people. On the island of Malinfondo, more and more people reacted and started talking about it. Faced with such a huge natural disaster, fear spread in everyone's heart. Bastiu stood at the dock, feeling very anxious, but he believed that the Warring States general would solve the matter. In the broadcast room, Uda was still singing passionately in front of the microphone. Zephyr slowly walked to the window, frowning as he looked at the rising Malinfondo. Of course, he also understood what would happen next. A natural disaster level ability. Boom! The strong wind rattled the doors and windows. The whole ground began to shake violently. Suddenly, a strong sense of weightlessness came over me like a tide, as if even the heaven and earth were shaking. Zephyr made a prompt decision and came to Uda's side in an instant, protected her in his arms, and broke out of the door. The beasts who were not affected by Uda's song woke up directly from a peaceful state. But this time they didn't pounce on Marine because they were also flying in the sky. Not just them, many people are flying in the sky. Although the Marines in Marineford are much stronger than the Marines in other branches, there are not many who can actually use the 6 styles. And Moonwalk is the more difficult to master among the 6 postures. Therefore, there are definitely not many Marines who are truly capable of surviving this weightlessness. Time seems to stand still at this moment. All the exclamations, screams, cry for help, all turned into nothingness. Just when everyone is in despair, a biting chill spread across the battlefield. This is not the cold of death, but the ice of hope. Boom! Advertisement. The sea surface shook violently, and countless water sprays rose into the sky, just when the water spray reached its peak. A cold sound came from the sky. Ice Age. There was an even more piercing sound mixed in behind this sound. Makobo Timo. The water splashes all over the sky were instantly covered by solid ice, forming solid ice crystals. As the ice crystals broke, separated, and reorganized bit by bit. Finally, the downward momentum of Malinfondo was completely reversed. The ice crystals were like a huge barrier, holding Malinfondo firmly, as if the entire island was suspended in the air. As the ice crystals continued to reorganize, Malinfondo's falling speed gradually slowed down, and finally stagnated in the air, suspended in the silver-white world. Bang bang bang. Although the ice crystals appeared in time, there were still many people who did not grab the building immediately and fell heavily from the air, making a dull landing sound. Fortunately, the height of the fall was not too high, and most of the soldiers were not fatally injured. But there are also many unlucky people who happened to fall on sharp objects and receive fatal injuries. What happened? Hoo, did you survive? Who saved us? It's too scary, I thought I was dead. Look, it's ice. Marine and the people were talking a lot, and their faces were filled with the fear of the aftermath of the disaster. Everyone's eyes were subconsciously looking around, and then focused on a certain location, with shock and disbelief written on their faces. Icicles composed of water splashes are like crystal-clear statues, standing in the battlefield, reflecting the dazzling brilliance. At the same time, there was a coldness that penetrated people's hearts. This is Lieutenant General Kuzan. Bastiu stood in the air on the moonwalk, holding several Marine soldiers very close to him in his left and right hands. Jaji rolled his eyes at the ghost spider and continued. There is another way, which is to set off from Fishman Island, but that will take longer. The situation is very critical and we must go back immediately. What? Otherwise, and even if we can pass the review now, we won't be able to reach Malinfondo in less than 3 hours. The marine soldiers followed his line of sight and focused their gaze on the sky. Advertisement. All this means that he was the one who rescued Marine Fando, who was in danger just now. There were more than 20 Marine lieutenant generals wearing white uniforms sitting in the conference room. I saw a huge black bird spreading its wings, covering half of the sky. The man standing was tall and carrying a travel bag behind him. Flying Squirrel's words attracted the attention of Marine lieutenants present. This news was really shocking. Yes, and I heard that the guy from the Golden Lion had to destroy his legs before escaping. Considering that he is a disabled person, Malinfondo must be fine. What happened? Huo Shaoshan sat next to him, poured a cup of tea, and said casually. Then what should we do? You know, Malinfondo is at his weakest right now. The Flying Squirrel said angrily. The Golden Lion is attacking Malinfondo. Damn it, are we just going to wait like this? There are 2 people above it. One is sitting and the other is standing tall. This is already the 5th day that everyone has been here in G1, and it is also the 2nd day that Karen has been here. But I didn't expect that Mary Joa kept blocking everyone with the excuse that it required a process. Kuzan, you are finally here, Bastiu shouted excitedly, feeling extremely excited in his heart. New World, G1 Marine Fortress. Huo Shaoshan frowned. But our approval documents haven't come out yet. It's been under review for 2 days, and the request to return from Mary Joa has not been approved yet. Ghost Spider cursed angrily and clenched his fists. He jumped off the back of Jiu Huoniao and stepped on the icicles, which instantly lowered the surrounding temperature to freezing point, filling the air with a biting chill. The time goes back to 30 minutes ago. We can't take it lightly. Anyway, he has attacked Marinefondo before, so he still has some strength. Sorry, everyone, I'm late. They were all Marines sent on a mission. Flying Squirrel hung up the phone, with a terrifyingly gloomy expression on his face. Ever since the news that Karen and Kuzan had offended the Big Mom pirates and the Kaido pirates reached Marinefondo, Sengoku announced the order to abandon the search and asked the Marine lieutenant generals in the New World to return immediately. Unlike Kuzan, who was lazy before, he looks particularly serious now. What does the higher-up say? Huo Shaoshan stretched out his hand to stop the arguing people. Jiu Huoniao's eyes were deep, staring directly at everyone in Marineland through the thick clouds, bringing an invisible sense of oppression. HMPH, it's just a fish that slipped through the net in the old era. It's just that Malinfondo left us. There are also Warring States General and Teacher Zephyr there. I don't believe how much splash he can make. Seeing that Marinefondo had stopped falling, Bastiu brought the marine soldier in his hand to the ground of Marinefondo. Chapter 196 The Escaped Golden Lion Advertisement. There is no good solution from above, we can only wait. The Flying Squirrel sighed, helpless. Karen, who was sitting silently, had a bad feeling for no reason. Although he was very confident in Zephyr and Warring States, what if something unexpected happened? You must know that Uda is still at Marine headquarters. Zephyr is the instructor after all, and it is very likely that he will not be able to protect Uda by then. Why, are you worried about Uda? Gion, who was sitting on his left, noticed Karen's uneasiness and comforted him softly. It's okay. Isn't Uda with Teacher Zephyr? Nothing will happen. Karen nodded, non-committal, then he grabbed a cup of tea and drank it in one gulp. I'm going out to relax. After leaving a word, he turned around and walked out the door. Take me with you. A lazy voice came from the side. Karen turned around, and it turned out to be Kuzan. He looked the same as the last time Karen saw him, but there seemed to be a little less confusion in his eyes. He seemed to have figured something out. Kuzan continued, that big bird of yours should be pretty big. Karen was stunned. Not what you're talking about. Ahem, it's not small. It just so happens that the 2 of us can work together. It's always good to have an extra helper. Kuzan held a travel bag in one hand and walked slowly to Karen. Karen hesitated, but finally nodded. There is no difference between 1 person and 2 people, and 1 more Kuzan will not slow down the speed. No. Not too late, just right. Bastiu said excitedly that although he and Kuzan were both lieutenant generals, Kuzan was different from him. Kuzan was one of the best disciples trained by Teacher Zephyr. What else could he say, but suddenly a wild beast howled in the distance. Too bad. An idea occurred to Bastiu. Without the comfort of singing, these beasts began to regain their desire to kill. After experiencing the scene just now, not to mention the marine soldier, even he had just recovered. At this time, the beast launched another attack, and it was difficult to form an effective counterattack. Roar. The beast's eyes turned red instantly. They didn't know what was happening. They just wanted to kill the people in front of them crazily to fill their stomachs. Advertisement, Kuzan, I don't have time to explain to you, go and stop the beast. He roared, not daring to waste any time. I'm going to find Teacher Zephyr. At this moment, Karen also turned over and jumped off the bird, and the bird became the size of a sparrow again and landed on his shoulder. Karen stretched out his hand to stop Bastiu, who was about to leave, and said with a smile. Beast, don't worry, just leave it to me, you. Bastiu glanced at Karen. He naturally knew Karen. Like Kuzan, Karen was also Mr. Zfa's most proud student. Therefore, although he was anxious in his heart, he did not accuse him. Karen nodded, and a tyrannical aura emitted from the sky, almost covering the entire Mary Joa. Conquerors? Bastiu shook his head. He knew that conquerors had been released at the beginning of the Warring States period to try to stop the beasts, but these beasts themselves had no reason, only the desire to kill, and conquerors had no effect at all. Just when he was about to turn around and go to the broadcast room to find Zephyr, a scene that stunned him happened. The beasts that were still howling suddenly turned into ostrich shapes under the pressure of Karen conquerors. All of them were curled up with fear in their eyes. What's more, some people directly become incontinent. But no one fainted. What's going on? Bastiu was stunned and looked at the scene in front of him in disbelief. It's not that he hasn't seen conquerors before, it's because he has seen it that he finds it incredible. Because Karen's conquerors are not particularly powerful compared to Sengoku's. Maybe it's smaller than the one from the Warring States period. At least that's how it seemed to Bastiu. But the beasts that even Sengoku couldn't suppress with conquerors turned out to be fearful because of Karen's domineering power. He found it incredible. He keenly observed that none of these animals fainted due to their domineering power. Instead, every one of them was very conscious. Of course, in places where he couldn't observe, there were several transformed animal-type abilities that looked terrified at this time, not understanding what was happening at all. That's it. Karen woke Bastiu up and asked eagerly. Where is Teacher Zephyr? How is the situation at the rear? Is Uda okay? Warring States smiled, and then his expression changed, and he guessed the reason why Karen used conquerors. Just when he was about to go down, Karen and Kuzan beat him to it. Sakaski looked confused. He was keenly aware that something was wrong. In his impression, Kuzan's power should not be that strong. Advertisement, he wondered. Whose conquerors is this? Why don't I remember it? Hearing that the beast was under control, Warring States breathed a sigh of relief again. It's Karen. He is just like you. Zephyr is training him as a future general. Kuzan walked between the two of them, looked at Bastiu, and said in a deep voice, First tell us what happened when we were away. Warring States asked in confusion, How did you do it? He did not hear Uda's singing. Fine, are my conquerors fake? So, Bastiu briefly described what happened to the two of them. Conquerors. Karen answered matter-of-factly. Warring States glanced at him, but didn't say much. Karen finally let go of her hanging heart, and then smiled and said, Okay, thank you. How's it going down there? Warring States. At this moment, a golden light slowly condensed into the shape of Perusalino, and he said in frustration. 3 questions in a row made Bastiu, who was already confused, even more confused, but he quickly responded. If it weren't for Kuzan, I'm afraid Malinfondo would really have perished. Is Karen's real? Standing in the air, Jung Guo let out a long breath. Huh, luckily Kuzan came in time, otherwise. What a tough conquerors. The beasts have been controlled. There should be a lot of casualties down there, but there are no statistics on how many. Both sides asked at the same time. He had only one thought. Oops. Beast. Sakaski cast his gaze downward. I didn't catch him, let him run away. He didn't finish his words, but everyone present understood what he meant. Perusalino said, The golden lion ran away. Where's the golden lion? The backside is similar to here. Uda should be fine. She is with Teacher Zephyr. What's down there? Warring States asked again. Chapter 197 Popular Uda. Advertisement 3 days later. Marine Headquarters, Marineland. Under Kuzan's control, Malinfondo has been let go little by little and restored to his original appearance. If it weren't for the traces of battles left everywhere on the island, it would be almost unimaginable that such a fierce battle took place here a few days ago. The soldiers of the Marine Headquarters were busy cleaning up the battlefield. The traces of lava and the ground scratched by swords still showed the brutality of this battle. The beasts that wreaked havoc on Malinfondo were also controlled by the Marines and imprisoned in Marinefando's prison. At the same time, the atmosphere in Fleet Admiral's office seemed particularly solemn. Marine Fleet Admiral, who wore a mohawk hairstyle, sat empty at the main seat. He has rarely interfered with the operation of Marine. All matters of Marine are basically directed by Sengoku. Just as Sengoku is the agent of Fleet Admiral, he himself also acts as the agent of World Government's Army Commander. But what happened this time was really bad. It can be completely compared to the last time Marijoya was invaded. Sitting next to him were Warring States and Zephyr. The conference room was packed with people, and basically all the generals from Marine Headquarters were present. Including Hua Xiaoshan and Guillaume, who were sent out to perform the mission. They also successfully arrived at the Marine Headquarters. Only Garp is not here, because Warring States knows that the target of the Golden Lion is the East China Sea, and Garp happens to be in the East China Sea. Everyone, I believe you also know why we are gathered here. Gangu Kong's voice was deep and powerful, resounding throughout the conference room, and his eyes scanned every general present. The Golden Lion's attack was premeditated. He not only wants to take revenge on us, but also wants to use this opportunity to tell those unruly pirates that he is still strong. We got news that he is going to reorganize the flying pirates in the East China Sea. We must stop him as soon as possible and don't let him do anything wrong in the East China Sea. I agree. Zephyr stood up with a firm gaze. Golden Lion's ambition has never diminished. His flying pirate group's ability to fight in the air is very difficult. We must never let him form a flying pirate group again. After saying that, he slowly sat down and glanced at Warring States, who was frowning. What do you think, Warring States? Warring States Road. I propose to send an elite team instead of sending a large-scale army. The Golden Lion is good at air combat. The ordinary soldiers we sent there have no ability to fight in the air. Only the real elite can compete with him. Staff officer, he nodded in agreement. Yes, don't forget those guys in New World. If we move in full force, they will never miss this opportunity. If Marinefondo is attacked by pirates again, the consequences will be disastrous. Advertisement. Then who should we send? Cyborg's empty eyes scanned the conference room. I can go. Huo Shaoshan stood up instantly. Then more and more lieutenant generals requested to go to war. Most of them were not in Marinefondo at the time, and they had already been holding back their anger. Quiet. Warring States' voice was like thunder, instantly suppressing the noise in the conference room. His eyes were sharp, scanning every lieutenant general who requested to fight. This mission is not only about personal honor, but also about the safety of the entire Marine. We must choose the most suitable candidate. Warring States, since the Golden Lion is good at air combat, then we should send out those elites who are experienced in air combat. Staff Officer Crane interjected, for example, Karen and Perusolino. As a user with the Shining Fruit ability, Perusolino's performance in battle is obvious to all, and Karen. They also know that Karen has a fruit that ate the Phantom Beast seed, and also has powerful aerial combat capabilities. Although Karen's position is only a major general, everyone present understands how powerful Karen is. Seeing that everyone's eyes were focused on him, Karen stood up from his seat and spoke in a sonorous tone. I'm going. Even if no one suggested that he go, he would go. After Marinefondo returned to the sea, Perusolino told him that the Golden Lion remembered Uda's name. He didn't want his family to be missed by a psychopath. Even if the Golden Lion helped him unintentionally, it wouldn't work. Huo Shaoshan said, isn't it inappropriate to only send two? The Golden Lion is not that easy to deal with. Warring States smiled slightly. Don't forget that there is also Garp, who has been in the East China Sea for a long time. The three of them are the elite of our marine. I think there is no problem. Guillaume looked at Karen and wanted to say something, but finally closed his mouth. She does not have air combat capabilities, or in other words, no sustained combat capabilities. The Piao Piao fruit is really too powerful in this sea. After the meeting, Karen did not leave for the East China Sea immediately. Instead, he and Uda wandered around Marinefondo. Since the last time he and Zephyr went to the Sabodi Islands, he has been busy outside and has no time to accompany Uda at all. Did you eat that fruit? Karen held Uda's little hand and walked through the streets of Marinefondo. Advertisement: the place is full of busy workers and marines. Yes, Karen. Uda lowered her head slightly, knowing that Karen did not want her to eat the devil fruit. Karen stopped, looked into Uda's eyes seriously, and chuckled. You did the right thing. You used the power of the devil fruit to protect yourself and many people. You are the hero of Marinefondo. How can I blame you? Uda smiled sheepishly, her face flushed, which was really cute. Really, Karen? Real. Karen knelt down and kissed Uda gently on the cheek. Uda suddenly said, I think Uncle Jesse and Sister Delica are here. It feels like I haven't seen them for a long time. Don't worry, they are fine. You will see them soon, very soon. Karen did not take Jesse back to Marinefondo. Although his appearance had changed drastically, Jesse was unwilling to face those familiar friends. He was afraid of exposing himself through his actions and posture. Okay, let's go back. Karen held Uda in her arms and was about to take her away. That little girl, is your name Uda? At this moment, a marine discovered Karen and Uda in Karen's arms. Karen stopped and looked at him in surprise. Major General Karen? It's really Miss Uda. He looked surprised and shouted, Look, it's Miss Uda. As he spoke, he looked like a groupie Karen had seen in his previous life, with an eager expression. Thank you, Miss Uda. You saved me and my daughter. You are our hero. His voice was full of gratitude and admiration, and people around him turned their heads and focused on Uda. Uda was a little stunned. She didn't expect that she would receive such attention. A blush appeared on her face, and she lowered her head, feeling a little at a loss. Karen looked at her with encouraging eyes. Uda then raised his head and imitated Karen's actions in giving back to the villagers in Windmill Village. I just did what I was supposed to do. Chapter 198, Rog Town. Advertisement: Holy Land, Marie Joya. Saint Satan held a photo and frowned. Could it be him? The scene in the photo is the entire battlefield of Marinefondo. At the edge of the picture, Kuzan is standing on a big black bird, and beside him is a young man with a stern expression. Below is the frozen water splash, which is dragging Marinefondo tightly. He always felt that this big black bird looked familiar, and he could feel the slightest chill through the photo. What do you think? At this moment, Saint Wachuli on the side asked. Saint Satan came back from his meditation and was a little confused. Saint Wachuli glanced at him and said calmly, We know that after that incident, you are very sensitive to ice, but Kuzan is by no means the real culprit in that incident. We have already confirmed it, haven't we? Of course, no, I'm not doubting Kuzan, but him. Sarton pointed to the bird flying in the sky. I always feel that the feathers of this big bird are very similar to the black crow that invaded Marijoa. Haha. Are you saying that Marijoa was invaded by a kid who just graduated from the military academy? Saint Wachuli dismissed it and mocked, and we trained it ourselves? Do you want to listen to what you are saying? Karen is by no means the black crow who invaded Marijoa. Don't forget that if it hadn't been for him and Kuzan this time, the entire Malinfondo would have been severely damaged. There is no reason why the black crow would ruin the Golden Lion's plan. He is the successor of the Golden Lion. Saint Moshe interjected. You're right, Saint Satan, don't be too aggressive. After catching the Golden Lion, you will know the identity of the black crow. So instead of thinking about who the black crow is, why not worry about how to catch the Golden Lion? Saint Nisholong snorted coldly and said slowly. A remnant of the old era dares to provoke us one after another. They really don't take us seriously. Let's not talk about it for now. Marine is urging us to allocate funds for Marineland. They want to repair Marineland. Saint Peter brought the topic back. Speaking of this, the atmosphere began to become silent. It wasn't that they didn't want to allocate funds to Marinefondo. The main reason was that Marijoa had just suffered an accident. In order to ease the hearts of those pigs, they promised that the celestial dragons would build Marijoa to be more perfect. Encrypted and airtight. Advertisement. All the money comes from the treasury, so the treasury in the hands of the 5 elders is not much. Not all Tianlong people are as useless as people think on the surface, and a large part of them are the world's elites and have received high-end education since childhood. For example, the Knights of God. Otherwise the world government would have been overthrown long ago. From the moment a celestial dragon is born, his life is planned, and part of it is trained as an elite to be able to enter the Knights of God in the future. The other part is for the family to spread its branches and continue to multiply. Don't underestimate these useless Dracos, they have a high say in Marijoa. So the 5 elders have to worry about the needs of these Dracos. How long has it been since the last time I collected gold from the sky? Saint Peter asked. 2 months. The financial god of war, Nishu Langsheng, answered. Don't think about this. If we forcefully collect taxes again, there will definitely be big problems. They are not stupid either, so naturally they will not make drastic moves at this time. The balance between the needs of the Draco and the resistance of the people has made the 5 elders feel stressed. We have to find other sources of revenue. Moshe Sheng frowned and said, we can no longer rely on those ordinary people. Their patience has reached its limit. Wachuli added, well, I have noticed that Monkey D. Dorag has changed the vigilantes into revolutionaries. More and more countries have chosen to join him. He has posed a threat to the world government, we can't ignore him. D. Saint Peter sighed, thinking of the bad rumors. Saint Satan cursed angrily. Damn it, what should we do? We can't ignore them, no matter what. Marine belongs to our world government. Bulu bulu bulu. Before he could finish speaking, a series of urgent phone calls sounded from his chest. Satan Saint lowered his head, connected the phone, and said in a very impatient tone, say. Advertisement. After a moment of silence, a faint laughter came from the other end of the phone. Bah. East China Sea. On the endless sea, Karen sat on the back of the bird, closing his eyes and meditating. He did not choose to set off from the marine headquarters with Perusalino. Instead, they agreed to meet in Rogue Town in the East China Sea, where Garp was already waiting. Rogue Town is known as the Town of the Beginning and End. It is located in the East China Sea and near the entrance of the Grand Line. One Piece Gold D. Roger was born in Rogue Town and was also executed here. It can be said that every pirate or merchant who wants to enter the Grand Route from the East China Sea must pass through Rogue Town. This has also led to the development of the entire Rogue Town very well, and his economic level is one of the best in the entire pirate world. So there are powerful marines guarding here all year round. Now, the Marine Colonel Karen stationed here is very familiar with him. He is Smoker. Stationing in Rogue Town is undoubtedly a very important task, and it is also a good job. The Red Earth continent here is different from the Red Earth continent in New World. There are 2 ways to enter the New World, and there is only one way to enter the Grand Line from the 4 seas, and that is to enter the Grand Line through the Upside Down Mountain. This step is enough to eliminate most pirates who want to enter the Grand Line. But for Karen it was a piece of cake. After crossing the Red Earth continent and entering the East China Sea, a small island appeared in his sight, which was Rogue Town. Rogue Town is undoubtedly a very prosperous place. The streets are lined with all kinds of shops, bars and hotels, and it is bustling with tourists. Karen sat on the back of the bird, overlooking the town, and couldn't help feeling filled with emotion. During the 2 years in the East China Sea, he often entered Rogue Town and protected the civilians living here, but this time, he was not sure there would be no casualties. Thinking of the tragic situation of Malinfondo, he slowly closed his eyes and opened them again, with murderous intent emerging in his eyes. We're here, just in time to meet an old friend. Chapter 199. Goodbye Smoker. Advertisement. Karen shuttled through the streets of Rogue Town. Because he was wearing a marine uniform, his appearance instantly attracted the attention of many people. Oh my god, it's Colonel Cullen, it's really Karen. The Hand of the East China Sea is back. I heard that Lieutenant Colonel Smoker and Cullen stationed in Rogue Town are from the same class. Is Colonel Cullen coming back to see his friends? After only 5 minutes, the streets were filled with people. During his 2 years in the East China Sea, he solved various pirate groups, large and small, making the people living in the East China Sea realize that there is a figure like him in the East China Sea, and gave him the title of Hand of the East China Sea. Karen was in a daze. Although it was only a few months ago, he felt that a long time had passed. Too many things have happened recently, and he has been busy almost since returning to Malinfondo. Compared with the urgency in Marineland, the smell of sea salt in the air of Rogtown, and the aroma of grilled fish and fresh fruits from the shops on both sides of the street made him feel a sense of relaxation and intimacy that he had not seen for a long time. Looking at the people with warm smiles and thinking of his own purpose, he sighed slightly. It would be great if there were no pirates and dragons in this world. The 2 years in Donghai have tempered his determination to reach the top. Anyway, with Luffy, he will change everything in the future. Whatever happens in this world has nothing to do with him. He just wants to spend his life smoothly with the people who love him and the people he loves. It's a pity that since Jesse was captured by the Celestial Dragons, he has understood that he must move forward and lead the people around him forward. To this end, he is willing to become an enemy of the entire world government. Boom! There was a roar of a machine in the distance, and Karen's thoughts were interrupted. He looked up and saw thick white smoke suddenly appearing at the end of the street. He saw a motorcycle speeding down the street. The roar of the engine echoed in the air, and the tires made a low roar as they rubbed against the ground, like a male lion, roaring. There were also shouts and curses from the vendors, mixed with the exclamations of the onlookers, which was chaotic and enthusiastic. You madman! Be careful! A vendor roared angrily, holding the freshly grilled fish in his hand, as if he was ready to throw it at the motorcycle at any time. The people on the motorcycle ignored him. He continued to increase the accelerator and reached the edge of the crowd in an instant. Give it! Advertisement. There was urgency and impatience in his voice. Who are you? Why should I let you? An uncle who was onlookers carrying vegetables muttered dissatisfiedly, and was quickly pulled by his companion who was also carrying vegetables. What? You don't even know him? Who is he? Lieutenant Colonel Smoker is the Marine stationed in our rogue town. Ahem, it turns out to be him. As he spoke, he glanced at Smoker, then looked at Karen, and murmured in a low voice. They are all Marine, why are there such big differences? This Lieutenant Colonel is so unlike Marine, he is even more of a pirate than a pirate, and there is no Karen at all. Colonel's propriety and elegance. Who says otherwise? I heard that he was like this in the headquarters. Many people above him disliked him, so he was transferred here. The two of them exchanged words with each other in a low voice. We haven't seen each other for so many years, but you are still so impatient. Karen smiled and hit Smoker on the shoulder. Smoker punched Karen back and laughed. You kid, you walk so fast. I thought I could catch you in Rog Town. Karen asked Zephyr. After he just left the East China Sea, the military students of his class all graduated. Most of them were assigned to the Paradise in the first half of the Grand Route, and only a few were assigned to the Four Seas. Smoker is one who is assigned to all over the world. It stands to reason that Smoker, as a rising Marine star of that generation, should be assigned to the Grand Line like Tina. It's a pity that this kid was too aggressive in the military academy and didn't even obey ZFA's orders. In addition, he made several mistakes and almost failed to graduate. It was only after Tina interceded with him that he was allowed to stay at Marine and graduate successfully. He himself is from Rog Town, and being able to return here can be regarded as a homecoming. Haha, how do you feel here? Karen asked with a smile. HMPH, that's what I'm talking about. Smoker glared at Karen. Advertisement. Karen scratched the back of his head, confused. What's wrong? It's not a good thing you did. At that time, when I came to Rog Town, I thought I could show off my talents. But in the end, you almost caught all the pirates. I'm bored to death here. Having said this, he suddenly lowered his voice and whispered. I heard that after you solve this incident, you will be promoted to Lieutenant General. Do you want to help me? Consider it your compensation for me. He said the last sentence confidently, as if Karen really owed him something. Karen felt a little funny when she saw his gesture. She didn't expect that Smoker, who almost ended One Piece, actually had this side. It seemed that he was really bored in Rog Town. Karen was really moved by Smoker's proposal. Although Smoker was called the Shame of Lobia, he was not weak, but his vision limited his development. If he had not been stationed in Rog Town, but had been on the Grand Line after graduation and learned hockey earlier, his achievements would have been by no means low. Just look at his growth path and you will understand. Before meeting Luffy, he was just hanging around in Rog Town waiting to die, but since he followed the protagonist group into the Grand Line, he has been constantly fighting, and getting beaten, by strong men, and he has been able to keep up with the protagonist group and grow together. It's a pity that it was too late for him to come into contact with the strong ones. At that time, he was already 34 years old. 34 years old is the peak of strength, but not the peak of learning. If he had fought with different strong men from the beginning and learned domineering earlier, his future achievements would definitely be more than Lieutenant General. Karen's mind moved and she was thoughtful. He wants to rebel against the world government, and he needs people like Smoker to help him. Thinking of this, Karen looked into Smoker's eyes seriously. Do you really want to go to the new world with me? It's more complicated than you think. Smoker was stunned for a moment, then his eyes lit up, and he nodded solemnly. I do. Okay, once this matter is resolved, I will arrange for you to become my adjutant and we will go to New World together. Seeing Smoker agree, Karen immediately grabbed his hand, fearing that he would regret it. For no reason, Smoker felt like he was on a pirate ship. He quickly let go of Karen's hand, quickly changed the subject, and said casually. Have you met Tina? Chapter 200 The Golden Lion has arrived? Advertisement at the mention of this familiar name, Karen smiled bitterly, not yet. Smoker asked. It shouldn't be, didn't you chase her when you were in the military academy? Too many things have happened recently. Okay, let's not talk about this, let's change places. After chatting in place for so long, more and more people came after hearing the news and wanted to see Karen. They are very curious about the legendary figures in the East China Sea. Who is Major General Cullen? Major General? Yes, Karen has been promoted to Major General. I heard from my next-door neighbor that Karen will become a Lieutenant General when he returns. He will be the youngest Lieutenant General in the Marine Corps. Who did your neighbor listen to? His father's teacher's uncle's son's classmate. Smoker looked at more and more villagers around him and couldn't help but laugh and curse. Damn it, I'm obviously the base commander here, why'd I come here to see you? Karen glanced at Smoker and said calmly, maybe it's because I'm more handsome. To Karen's expectation, Smoker nodded in agreement. That's true. You are indeed better looking than me. People are always more likely to have a favorable impression of good-looking people. Smoker said half-jokingly, with a hint of ridicule in his tone. He actually has a deep understanding of it. He is not ugly, compared with all the strange people in One Piece. He is considered a handsome guy, but his temperament always makes people feel that he is not easy to mess with. He walked through the streets of Rog Town and made the children cry countless times. Smoker suggested. How about, you are so popular, why don't you say a few words here? No, I have a mission this time. Karen responded calmly. Pushing aside the crowd, Karen sat on the backseat of Smoker's motorcycle and the two left together. What no one noticed was that in the shadow of the roof, a man in a black robe was slowly watching this scene. Kukuro Cullen? I really miss you. Advertisement. Are Lieutenant General Garp and Perusalino here? In the Marine base in Rogue Town, Karen sat next to Smoker, casually sipped tea and asked. Before Smoker could answer, two familiar voices came from the back of the conference room one after another. Little Karen, hurry up and cook for me. What a scary young man. I underestimated your speed. Come on, it looks like I'm the last one to arrive. Also, one of them is light, and the other is in the East China Sea. Naturally, I can't compare with them. We meet again, Lieutenant General Garp. Karen stood up from her seat and smiled. Garp picked his nostrils, walked over, and said nonchalantly. Haha, little Karen, don't just laugh, hurry up and cook for me, I don't have time to wait for you. He didn't want Zephagion to eat secretly behind other people's backs. He never tried to hide the delicious food, nor did he care about the looks from the outside world. Several times he ate the food cooked by Karen as if it were a normal meal. Not shy. Karen is quite envious of his mentality. For Karen, there is no difference between stripping and touching oneself in public and defecating in public. Don't worry, Lieutenant General, you can eat whatever you want after this matter is resolved. Karen responded with a smile. Ha ha ha, this is what you said. If MD had known that your cooking was so delicious, I should have tied you to my ship and served as my adjutant. Every time he mentioned this, Garp regretted that he had the opportunity to do this. Perusalino, who was watching the excitement, did not think it was a big deal, and said, it's okay now. Karen rolled her eyes at him. Garp took off his shirt, looked at Karen with interest, and said excitedly. Well, why don't you give it a try? I heard that you kid is always causing trouble in the new world. It really makes us Marine proud. Karen waved his hands quickly. He didn't want to have a fight with Garp for no reason. The guy didn't know how to practice. It was really painful to hit someone. Ahem, let's discuss how to deal with the Golden Lion. Karen shook her head helplessly, turned around and looked at Garp and Smoker seriously. From the words of the Golden Lion, the place he is most likely to destroy first when he comes to the East China Sea is Rog Town. If this is the case, it is not bad. We are all here. If not, it will be bad. Advertisement, Donghai is not that small. If his target is not Rog Town, then it may be really difficult to find him. Karen is right, Perusalino nodded slightly, frowning, we must prepare for the worst. So, how should we deal with it? Garp's expression became serious. Although he always liked to fight, but facing a powerful enemy like the Golden Lion, he knew that he could not take it lightly. First of all, we need to understand the movements of the Golden Lion. Perusalino pondered for a moment, and then said, I can use my speed to quickly conduct reconnaissance in various ports in the East China Sea to see if there are any traces of him. This is a good idea. Karen nodded in agreement. At the same time, I think we should move the people in Rog Town to a safe place first. I don't want the tragedy of Malinfondo to happen here. I completely agree. Smoker's eyes became more determined. I will carry out this matter. We cannot let any innocent lives be harmed. Rog Town is a small town with a small population, but we must ensure that everyone can evacuate safely. Roger Town is Smoker's hometown, and he naturally doesn't want his hometown to be destroyed by the Golden Lion. Okay, let's do it. Garp made the final decision. Although Perusolino and Garp are both lieutenant generals, there are still differences between lieutenant generals and lieutenant generals. Even as his backup general, he doesn't have as much say as Garp does in Marine. Garp is a Marine who cannot be restricted by his position. He is the hero of Marine. The short meeting was over. Smoker sets about arranging for Marines to assist in the evacuation of civilians. Perusolino immediately flew to the distant sea. After getting to know Perusolino, Karen realized that he was not lazy and fishing as the outside world thought. On the contrary, he was definitely very diligent in the Marine of people. After Smoker and Perusolino left, Karen and Garp became the most idle people. Karen glanced at Garp and wanted to sneak away, but Garp grabbed him by the neck. He smiled and said, "Where do you want to go, brat?" Karen said calmly, "I'm going to help Smoker. I still have some reputation in Rog Town and can help him coordinate the people." Garp looked at him suspiciously, and after a while he smiled and said, "Don't worry, I believe in his strength. As for you, hurry up and cook for me." The last sentence almost came out in a roar. If the people around Karen are foodies, then Garp is definitely the best foodie among foodies, and he is also willing to cultivate foodies. Karen sighed, knowing he couldn't escape. Okay. After a while, a dazzling light suddenly flashed in the kitchen of Rog Town. At the moment when this light just appeared, the whole world suddenly dimmed a bit, and a crazy smile came from the sky. Gia ha 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 ha, is this the town where Roger died?